I can't do it.
Okay.
We'll do it live.
Okay.
Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
Time to rise and grind.
Are you kidding me? Holy on smoke!
And let's get this banter going.
It's bacon!
This is Snowman in the Morning.
Does anybody else feel like a fried egg?
And it begins now.
I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell,
I think I just broke my chair. He did what?
Has anybody ever told you you have a serious impulse control problem?
There is but one cause for me to follow. Almighty the Bum!
And here we go.
Oh, yeah!
And that's hit pretty well and pretty deep to left. Gardner is going back, looking up. See you later!
You golden blank staggered black skeleton and blinkety black punk are you trying to do? Of all that low dirty...
Michael on the drive across the lane. Turnaround shot. Got it. 63 for Jordan.
Do you believe it?
Murphy picked out of midair to Amani. Sent him up Roenick. Hawksland! 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 Jeremy Roenick! After the giveaway was forced by Amani. What a play by Tony Amani! And Jeremy Roenick fired it home at the 123 mark. And the Blackhawks have come back from the dead in this series.
Here we go on a Friday, folks. Time to end the week the right way. Good morning, and welcome to the fantastic Friday of the latest and greatest edition of Snowman in the Morning, the best sports talk show you haven't heard of until now, and we hope you're hearing more of it. You can follow along with us on social media by dialing up SNW Digital Media for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and Pinterest. You can also log on to Snowman Digital Media for all of our great conversation from this show as well as others produced by Snowman Digital Media. You can hear us Monday through Friday on all of our great stations and networks in the region, across the nation, and around the world. The podcast version of this show will be available right after this show is completed. Now that we got all that out of the way, let's kick this Friday show off right. On your mark, get set, and away we go. Man, I haven't done this in a while, but I'm going to do it now. I'm going to start with a funny husband story. And actually, this story takes place while my wife and I were planning our wedding, in the months before we were planning our wedding. So I figured I'd open with a little humor. For those of you that have been forced to stay home, which is much of the country right now, please stay home, please be safe, and please can take care of yourselves and get well while we fight our way through this coronavirus pandemic. But how about a little humor to start the show? So while my wife and I were planning to get married, we needed some ideas. So she approached me one day and she says, honey, you know what? I said, what's that, babe? She says, how would you feel about going to a bridal show? Now, normally, men would bristle at the idea because it's a bridal show and it gives the woman a lot of ideas to use. So I didn't bristle at it. I actually thought about it for a quick moment and I said, sure, why not? Let's go for it. And she looked at me and she says, are you sure? I said, hell yeah. Let's go ahead and do this. Let's have some fun, shall we? So the first one we ever went to together was in Terre Haute, Indiana. And we got to the place, had to find a place to park, and all that stuff. It was last February. And like I said, had to find a place to park, did that, went into the place, and I can't remember the name of the school, but it's in Terre Haute, and when St. Mary of the Woods, thank you. She just said in my ear, St. Mary, crazy. But went in, and I'm looking around, and I'm going, maybe this is a bet. No, you said you'd do it. So I'm walking around. We're getting registered, a couple different things. And then all of a sudden, I get approached saying, you want a free drink? I looked at the person who asked me that, looked at my wife, and I went, Hell yeah, I want a free drink. My wife looks at me and goes, uh-oh. I think we've turned to Red's Apple Ale. And then she looks at me, and I know she jokes around with me a lot. And she says, you know they have free food in there too. Wait, what? Yeah, they got free food in there. There's a lot of stuff you can sample. And I was like, all right, sign me up. I'm in. She says, you sure you want to do this? Yes, I want to do this. We're getting married. We need some ideas. We're on a budget. Let's do it. You sure you didn't come here just for the free food? I just found out about the free food. Oh, there's more drinks in there too. What? So it's a triple play. I get greeted with a free drink, free food, and more free drinks. And by the way, the most beautiful lady on earth next to me, laughing her head off at me as I am just about as silly as it gets inside that place. Little did I realize that there would be monsters created out of both of us. Because when we got home that week, she started looking up more bridal shows for us to go to from Terre Haute. Oh, and most of the time we go to a bridal show, it's in Indianapolis. And the work week would go something like something like this. Of course, I had this show 5 days a week. She would be at her job, and we just couldn't wait to get to the weekend where we can drive to Indy and go to a bridal show. And she looked at me and she says, you're really getting into this. I said, this is fun. Aside of the free food and the drinks, this is fun. This gives us ideas. Well, my wife decides to make another joke, and she says, I can't take you anywhere without you making a friend. So at these bridal shows, I made about 2 or 3 friends. One of them had a mobile DJ outfit. Oops. So she yanks me aside. She says, do you know what they cost? Yes. Did you ask them what they cost? No. But you know what they cost? Yes. Are you sure we're going to have the budget to use them? Probably not. And she starts laughing. She goes, why are you talking to them? They were talking basketball. She just shakes her head and looks at me and goes, oh, jeez. But those Saturdays, those weekend days, I beg your pardon, were awesome. Because it gave me a chance to hang out with my wife, get some ideas for our wedding, and we put a good wedding together on a budget. But we just both wanted to see what we could see. And we saw a lot. We saw a lot. So it took a combination of those ideas and some Pinterest ideas, because I will tell you right now, my wife is the queen of Pinterest. She is. She is the queen of Pinterest. Because sometimes she'll cook something, and I said, where'd you get this idea from? Pinterest. Okay, cool. And she woke me up one night. I kid you not. She woke me up one night and says, honey, you need to try Pinterest sometime. For what? And I wasn't familiar with it at the time. And I said, for what? Well, you want to put your studio together. Hot damn, that is an idea. Yeah, I got addicted really quick. And that's when people started telling me, you can put your show on Pinterest too, and people can follow you that way. I explained that to my wife, and she just looks at me matter-of-factly with this wicked grin and says, you didn't know that yet? Not only that, she backed it up with, told you so. And a social media lineup. Let's start the show with something. So yeah, there's my funny husband story, with the wife basically saying, I told you I got married, with all these bridal shows that we went to. And I figured open the show with a little bit of humor. Now we're getting ready to dive back in. Gonna take a break, and we're gonna talk some sports. Strap it down. Snowman in the morning, back in a flash.
Snowman in the Morning.
Holy on smoke!
Where true sports talk lives.
I like him. He's silly.
All right, folks. I haven't had this man on in a while, and we hope everyone is staying safe with this coronavirus pandemic that's going on. Please take care of yourselves. But let a friend of mine and I distract you from this pandemic with a little bit of football. Mike DeBate joins me from Full Press Coverage, as well as the host of Locked On Patriots. He's on the other side of the hotline right now. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, my friend. Hope you and yours are staying as safe and as well as possible. Again, interesting times in which we live, but thankfully we're able to share the microphone today and hopefully give our listeners a little distraction from everything that's been going on.
Absolutely. You hear Mike every week during the football season and now into the off season, which may be extended a little bit. You're going to hear him a lot more. We prepare for the draft and for the 2020 season. There were rumors floating around that Tom Brady may come home to San Francisco, but the 49ers chose to stay with Jimmy Garoppolo, and in 2 words, right move.
Absolutely, right move. If you're the San Francisco 49ers and you have the opportunity to bring in a quarterback like Tom Brady, it's so difficult to pass that up, unless you have the nucleus in place that the 49ers have, and that includes Jimmy Garoppolo. Look, I know a lot of people wanted to make some big deal out of the way he played in the second half of the Super Bowl and maybe indicate that that meant that maybe Jimmy wasn't ready for prime time. I sincerely disagree with that, and I disagree with that wholeheartedly. Jimmy, I think, played admirably in the Super Bowl. I think he played admirably all season last year. A lot of people forget, and we've talked about this several times here on this show, my friend, he came off of a very debilitating injury. It took him a while to get back into the swing of things. Look at what he did in his first year back. I think that's pretty impressive, folks. And, he takes this team within an eyelash of winning a Super Bowl. I think to give up on that was disingenuous. And I think you saw Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, and the San Francisco 49ers Brain Trust realize what they had in Jimmy. And I think they realized that this was their opportunity to really move forward. You have a guy that's under contract for the next 5 years. He's young. He's very capable of leading this team for a good number of years. And I think you're only seeing the tip of the iceberg in terms of the ceiling that Jimmy can reach, where there is no one I hold in higher regard that's ever worn shoulder pads than Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. I remain a fan of his now. I will until the day I die. But when you take a look at the fact that he's going to be 43, you don't jettison a young quarterback at the age of 28 that was capable of bringing you to a Super Bowl for 1 or 2 years at maximum. So while it would have been a great story, I think Tom would have loved to go to San Francisco and finish his career there. But ultimately, they had the right guy in place, and they made the right decision by sticking with Jimmy G.
And look at the weapons around him. Raheem Mostert, Tevin Coleman, Matt Breida. And, folks, Breida is staying put. Until I see something different, Breida is staying put. So you got a 3-headed monster in the backfield. Coleman and Mostert shouldered most of the load the second half of the season, yes, but you got to include Breida. Kyle Juszczyk, their outstanding fullback. Kind of reminds you of Tom Rathman, doesn't he? The best tight end in the game in George Kittle. You got Deebo Samuel on one side, Kendrick Bourne. Yes, you lost Emmanuel Sanders in free agency, but don't forget, Niners fans, there's a fellow by the name of Jalen Hurd who you and I tracked out of Baylor, who was selected by the 49ers, couldn't play this past season due to a debilitating back injury, but I expect him to be on the opposite side of Deebo Samuel. And if it's possible for this offense to get even more dangerous, here comes Jalen Hurd.
Absolutely. And Hurd out of Baylor is somebody that I had mocked several times, hoping that the New England Patriots would be able to pick him up. Of course, I mocked Deebo Samuel quite a few times to the Patriots, too. So the Niners definitely had their eye on guys that I had my eye on. But I like to think their brain trust is a little smarter than mine. But you know what? In any case, I agree with you on Hurd. I think this guy has a tremendous opportunity now to fit into an offensive system that I believe is tailor-made for him. And he's tailor-made for it. the loss of Emmanuel Sanders is going to be a tough one, but let's not forget that Sanders is not a guy that came into training camp with the 49ers last year. He fit in very well. He was admirable in everything that he did. However, the 49ers were the 49ers before Emmanuel Sanders got there. Emmanuel Sanders added another dimension to that, but he did not define who they were. They weren't an also-ran team that all of a sudden ascended to the next level. They were already at the top of the conference. So this was an addition move. He was a great player for them, and I'm definitely in no way disparaging Emmanuel Sanders, but it's capable, or it's possible, I should say, for Hurd or somebody else to be capable of filling those shoes. And you mentioned Matt Breida, you mentioned Coleman, you mentioned Mostert. They rode that three-headed monster of a running attack all the way to a Super Bowl, near a Super Bowl title. So there's no reason to believe they can't do the same thing again. You and I are both big fans of Breida. You've been an advocate of his. You've made me study him a lot more, and I appreciate that because I really believe that this kid has a great amount of talent and a lot of ability to be able to get the job done. So I like this this offense of the San Francisco 49ers, and again, I think Jimmy is the perfect guy to be leading it.
And speaking of Garoppolo leading this offense, who expected, besides yours truly, who expected the 49ers to not only contend in the NFC, but win the West and have home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs? And Al Michaels said it best on the last regular season game, a nice path to Miami. Not very many people gave the 49ers a chance to not just compete in the NFC West, but win the division, get a week off to heal, and then, for lack of a better term, 2 blowouts in Santa Clara.
Absolutely. And again, I give you all the credit in the world, and much more so than myself. And even in the off season, right around this time last year when when I was celebrating a Super Bowl championship with the Patriots. No, I'm kidding. We have to live a little bit in the past right now. I'm living vicariously. I actually went through the parade photos on my phone today, which was probably not a good idea, Brian. But you know what? You needed something to uplift the spirits. But no, in all actuality, last year, right around this time, we were talking about the prognostication, I guess is the best way for me to put it, like that big word, for the 49ers and what it meant for their season going forward. You were extremely high on the 49ers, and I'll be honest, I thought they would be in contention. I did not believe they would be at the level that they ended up being, but you believed in them right from the get-go, and it made me want to learn more about the team and study the team, and the more I studied, the more I liked it. This is, I think, a very interesting off season for them. They have the target on their back a little bit more now. They're not going to sneak up on a lot of people. So that's one thing. If I'm a Niners fan, I want to keep a sharp eye on how they handle being the target, being the hunted one. I know that from personal experience up here in New England for the last 20 years. Mm-hmm. You have teams coming into New England, coming into Foxborough, treating it like their Super Bowl. The Niners will experience that this year. People are going to be coming in, especially in the NFC, and they're going to want to be on their game. They're going to want to be taking everything that they can to the 49ers. And I know the organization as a whole, as their history is used to that, but this group of 49ers, this is the new opportunity for them to prove that they are the class in the NFC. I think they have the discipline and the makeup to do just that, and I expect to turn heads this year again, just as they did last year.
Well, they turned heads during this offseason by sending DeForest Buckner, their team MVP, to Indianapolis, and they get the 13th overall selection in this year's draft. And I've had people ask me, which way are they going to lean? Are they going to lean offense? Are they going to lean defense? They're going to lean right back to South Carolina. This is part of my mock draft. They're going to go right back to South Carolina, and there's a defensive end by the name of Javon Kinlaw that I believe is going to be staring them right in the face.
Absolutely. And honestly, that is who I have mocked for the 49ers in several versions of mock drafts that I've done for the draftnetwork.com or for the Locked On Podcast Network. We do a lot of prognosticating on our shows, and Kinlaw is the guy that I think is a hand-in-glove fit for the 49ers. Look, he's quick off the block. He's able to box out. He has that discipline, and he has the pedigree to be able to make an immediate impact on a defense. When you're looking at a defense that's been as prolific as the 49ers was this year, adding a guy like Kinlaw is really I don't want to say it's a wash because I think that does Buckner a disservice. He's a tremendous player. I think the 49ers in a perfect world would have loved to have held on to him, but
Right.
I think they saw an opportunity to be able to get similar production, better value, and save money in the process. By doing that, I think they were smart in making this move. And again, I think Buckner is going to do a tremendous job in Indianapolis, but I also believe that the 49ers have positioned themselves well to be able to get his replacement. And I'd be surprised if they went with anyone other than Kinlaw, unless he's not on the board.
Unless Kinlaw's not on the board, I see Kinlaw falling right into San Francisco's lap, the same way you and I were correct in predicting Nick Bosa would fall to the 49ers. Now, a lot of people got on the bandwagon late last year before the draft, seeing Nick Bosa to San Francisco, and then, we heard the rumbles. You and I both heard them. We spoke about it on my show, talking about, it's going to be a couple of years before Bosa really makes an impact. Wrong answer. He made an impact immediately. 3 sacks in the game against Carolina, plus an interception. He was the overall Rookie of the Year and the runaway Rookie of the Year. And Javon Kinlaw fits that 49er defense with Robert Saleh as their coach, hand in glove, and he could repeat the exact same year that Nick Bosa had. So you allow Bosa to gain a year. You allow Solomon Thomas out of Stanford to gain a year. Eric Armstead, who had a 5-year extension given to him and richly earned. So you go across that front line, and you're not going to lose any production, even if you do stick another rookie like Javon Kinlaw, 6'5", 324 pounds. You think he won't pressure the quarterback in that system? You won't think he'll have fun in that system? Man, Robert Saleh, all he has to do, and we started talking about this last year after the performance in Los Angeles against the Rams, all Saleh has to do is turn the dogs loose. And the difference between this 49er defense and other defenses around the league that try to get to the quarterback with only 4 pass rushers, the 49ers get home, and they get home fast.
They do. And the versatility in that lineup really allows them to play a traditional 4-3. It allows them to go back and to switch it up a little bit and play some 3-4 as well. Very few teams in the league have the ability to do that, including the Patriots, whom I cover, who really played primarily a 3-4 last year because of the versatility of their linebackers. I think they have to make a return to the 4-3 this year because they don't have that. They've lost Kyle Van Noy. They've lost James Collins. They've lost Landon Roberts. It's going to be difficult for them to replicate that. So I look for them to play more 4-3. The 49ers, on the other hand, have a tremendous opportunity to be able to play both and play them equally well. That's what makes them such a formidable defense. And in my opinion, that's what separates them from the rest of the pack when it comes to contenders in the NFC.
And if you want to be the NFC champions, you're going to have to go through Santa Clara. You're going to have to go through the 49ers. And, on the road to Tampa, the only place the 49ers have not conquered in their Super Bowl travels, I don't see anyone stopping them. I just don't.
No, I don't either. And that includes my good friend Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which
right.
I know a lot of people want to make them the flavor of the month. And look, I think Tom Brady makes the Tampa Bay Buccaneers markedly better. And
yes.
I think they will be a contender. They'll be in the playoffs this year, folks. Tom's not going down there to lose. I can guarantee you that. And they have the talent to be able to contend. However, when you look at both sides of the ball, I think Tampa still has some questions defensively. I know a lot of people are saying, it was because Jameis Winston threw 30 interceptions and they never had a chance to really set themselves and they were constantly defending against the turnover. Some of that is true, but until you've been able to prove it on the big stage, it really hasn't happened yet as far as I'm concerned. So there are still question marks when it comes to Tampa Bay's defense. I still think the running game might be a question mark for them. I think that, Tom definitely has his weapon of choice when it comes to the wide receiver position. Even the tight end position, I think he's got a pretty good amount of weapons there as well. I'd like to see them really solidify their running game, I think is the best way for me to put it, before I start anointing them. But then you look at teams like the New Orleans Saints, who really have made a tremendous amount of progress, bringing in Emmanuel Sanders, who we talked about earlier, shoring up that defense a little bit. That is a strong team. Seattle Seahawks have made themselves better, even just by bringing in a guy like Philip Dorsett, who I know doesn't turn a lot of heads, but I've covered Philip for 3 years here in New England. I can tell you that in the right system, he's got blazing speed, and he still has the ability to be an effective receiver. And then, of course, the Green Bay Packers. You can't count out a team that is quarterbacked by Aaron Rodgers.
Absolutely
He's automatically
not
going to make that team a contender. The Minnesota Vikings turned a lot of heads this year. Yes, they lost Stephon Diggs, but they have, made opportunities for them to replicate some of what he did. And Kirk Cousins, for all his faults that he takes in the media, he's still been able to bring that team to prominence. So this is going to be an interesting year. And of course, we haven't even touched on the monsters of the Midway in Chicago. The Bears with Nick Foles playing the quarterback.
Yep.
And there's a possibility that he could make that team that much more formidable. You take a look now, all of a sudden, at Khalil Mack and Robert Quinn. That is a fearsome defense. So
Dangerous.
The NFC is going to be fun to watch this year.
It is. The NFC is going to be fun to watch. The NFC South in particular is going to be fun to watch. The only two teams that didn't make any quarterback moves were the New Orleans Saints and the Atlanta Falcons. Breeze comes back for another year. Matt Ryan is still in Atlanta. Tom Brady comes to the NFC South, which is probably going to be the most competitive division outside of the NFC West. But, as much love as I have for Tom Brady, you got to go through Cool Breeze to claim that division. And that's a process in and of itself.
It is. And don't forget, Breeze has a lot of experience playing in that division. Tom does not. And, it's one thing to be able to adapt to situations. If there's any quarterback that can adapt to a situation quickly and not be fooled by anything an opposing defense is going to throw at him, it's Tom Brady. He's seen it all. He's done it all. However, Breeze has been the king of that division for quite a while now. And I think there's still something to be said about the New Orleans Saints and the stranglehold that they've had, playing in that division. And albeit, there have been, moments where Atlanta has had their moments. And, a few years ago, they made the run all the way to the Super Bowl. Patriots fans remember that extremely well. But, you look at the Carolina Panthers and what they've been able to do, and bringing in a guy like Teddy Bridgewater, I think is brilliant. I think he's a perfect fit for that team. So that is going to be a very interesting division. It's going to be a tough division. It's going to be a fun division to watch. There's going to be a lot of points put up in that division this year.
Oh, yeah. And plus, we get to see Tom Brady versus Drew Brees twice, once in Tampa, once in New Orleans. But again, my statement remains, and I know yours echoes with me. If you want to be the champs, you got to beat the champs. Right now, the NFC champs are in Santa Clara, California. And I'll say it again, and I know this is early, but at the same time, given the way that I've watched the NFC and I've covered the NFC, for the past some 12, 13 years, and the last 6 on this show, the way this 49ers team is managed and run and put together, and plus not 1 but 2 first-round picks, I don't see anybody knocking them off for a while.
I don't either. And the way that they're constituted, the way that they've been able to build on offense and on defense, I still see them as the class of the NFC. And again, you put it very eloquently. Until someone proves that they can beat them, they're the champs. You have to go through them. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're unbeatable, but what it means is that they are the least likely to be beat. And I think that that's something that is probably something people need to remember. Don't necessarily go with the flavor of the month here, folks. Use your eyes, use your common sense. Take a look at the rosters from start to finish. I still think San Francisco is a cut above the rest.
And it's going to be fun watching them defend their division title and their conference title. And much too early as it may seem to a lot of people, I believe there's going to be a 6th celebration of a Super Bowl next February in San Francisco. Stay tuned, folks. That's Mike Debate. He joins me each and every week to talk NFL. We're going to lead you up to and through the draft. Going to give you our mock drafts, and we got a lot in store for you. This man is in charge of Locked On Patriots as well as part of the Full Press Coverage network that syndicates our show. Man, they're a fabulous network. Please check them out at fullpresscoverage.com and hit my man up at Locked On Patriots. Such a thrill and a pleasure to have you on. I love you, and thanks for coming on, my friend.
Absolutely. The feeling is definitely mutual, Brian. Please, you and yours, stay safe. stay safe, everyone out there, and hopefully sports can give you some sort of a diversion. But it's always a pleasure to share the microphone with you, my friend.
Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is Snowman in the Morning, where true sports talk lives.
He did what? I did not need to be told that.
You want to know something crazy, folks? Ever since I moved from Indiana to North Carolina with my family, I've met some great people. And last week I had Miles Clark on, who is a former Eagle, North Carolina Central. And now I have his teammate on. Say hello to Charles Whitfield. He joins me now on the other side of the hotline. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing terrific. It's great to meet you, and it's great to talk to you.
My pleasure. It's my total pleasure. And anybody that is a friend of my teammate, Miles Clark, is now a friend of mine, and my pleasure to join you on your radio show.
I really appreciate it. What was it like with you and Miles playing at North Carolina Central? And this is back in the 80s when you guys were in Division II before you guys made the jump to D1.
Exactly. No, it was a beautiful thing. Miles is a couple years older than myself, so he was like a big brother to me. And when I first came in as a freshman at North Carolina Central, I played basketball in Greensboro at Greensboro Page High School. And once I got to Central, you know, as you are in high school, when you're the man or one of the men on your team, when you get to college, you're back at the low man on the total pole again. And as a freshman, that's exactly where I was. And I had a couple guys like Miles, a couple other teammates. One of our teammates is a brother named Cleo Hill, Jr., who's now the head coach at Winston-Salem State. So he was another one of my big brothers, and another brother named Wayne Howell, who, you know, all three of those guys kind of almost adopted me as their little brother. And the experience was great. And to be able to be in practice and learn from those guys. And the beautiful thing is after college, you know, I graduated in college in 1991 and it's now 2020. But the beautiful thing is we're all still connected and we're still friends. You know, all of my teammates, we share a group text with about 20 of us. And every day, one of our teammates who now is a minister sends us out a scripture every day. And, you know, we're able to just communicate with each other. So whether, you know, unfortunately, we've had a couple teammates who passed away over the years, but when someone has a birthday or when something good happens in each other's lives, with the simple click of a text, you know, we're able to stay looped in. And Miles was always great on the court. He was a great basketball player. He was a great leader, but he was a great person. And the beautiful thing is, you know, with what we're going through now, with this, you know, coronavirus pandemic, you know, everyone has nothing but time. And through it, you're able to stay connected or reconnect with new friends such as yourself.
And it's been absolutely great to connect with you, to connect with Miles Clark and everyone I've had a chance to connect with. You were not only a basketball player, but you were also into music, which led to you getting into radio. And I read in your bio, while folks were getting into Kool Moe Dee and those guys, you were into George Benson.
Exactly. I grew up listening to jazz with the older brother. I'm 50 years old. If I can make it 2 more days, I'll be 51. Celebrate my birthday on March the 30th. But I have an older brother who's 10 years older than me, who, as most people know, if you have a brother or older sibling, you want to hang out with them. And that was my dream, was to just hang out and ride with him. And as I would ride around town with him, with us having a 10-year age gap, I was listening to a lot of jazz that he listened to, whether it was David Sanborn, whether it was George Benson, whether it was Miles Davis. And don't get me wrong, you also listen to a lot of early, a lot of R&B. This was in the late 70s, early 80s. So whether it was SOS Band or Michael Jackson or Prince. So I really, credit a lot of, my music knowledge to my brother, because at the time I didn't know it, but I was actually, riding around listening to music with him, and which would eventually turn into a job. Not only working in radio, but prior to me working in radio, I actually helped start a record label called Hidden Beach Records that actually Jill Scott was the first artist that I worked with, that actually through my brother and a close family friend being Michael Jordan, he actually became the majority investor in Hidden Beach. So at the end of the day, through relationships was how I ended up getting my job in the music business, and have been in it 25 plus years, and blessed to be in a business doing something I truly love every day. But through sports, a lot of relationships I met through sports, between sports and entertainment, as we all know. All entertainers want to be tied into sports, and all sports athletes want to be tied in with musicians.
True.
And so the beautiful thing is, I've been blessed through a lot of close relationships to be blessed to have my foot in both. And it's nothing that I ever take for granted. And it's a blessing. And I try and touch as many young people as I can to help pass down some of the knowledge and wisdom I've received over the years through some of my mentors. And to me, it's all about paying it forward.
Yeah, it is. And I try to do the same with my radio show and my media company, Snowman Digital Media, that I just started at the top of this year. And you just mentioned,
congratulations on that.
Thank you. And you just mentioned the player who I watched the most, which is Michael Jordan, and before him it was Julius Erving. And here is where I differ from a lot of folks that I talk to today in terms of basketball. When they ask me who my favorite player is, and I say Michael Jordan without blinking, at the same time, I'm not oblivious to the folks who paved the way for Michael Jordan, like a Julius Erving, like a Magic Johnson, like a Larry Bird. Hell, one of my favorite point guards played with Philadelphia, and that was Maurice Cheeks, fellow Chicagoan.
Nope, I grew up we're, without even knowing your age, we sound like we're in the same generation. And the one thing I can tell you, I met Michael when I was 15, and I'm 50, soon to be 51, and he's like another big brother to me. And as I tell people, we actually met him when he was in high school. My brother used to be an assistant coach at a small school in North Carolina called Campbell University.
Yeah.
And they used to have a pretty prestigious basketball camp. And my brother was working on his master's degree. He played at Campbell, but he was a grad assistant. And when Michael was in high school, Michael came and played with a lot of the ACC players who used to come down and play. And that's where we first met him. And he and my brother just got a click and got a bond and stayed connected. And as I tell people, how close are he and Michael really are. One, they've been in business 25, 30 years. My brother is fortunately the president of the Charlotte Hornets. But when Michael's dad passed away, my brother and a few of Michael's close friends were pallbearers. Yeah. And at the end of the day, that's all you need to know what that relationship is about. So not only have they do business together where, my brother helps oversee all of the business side of the Charlotte Hornets, Michael's family. And so at the end of the day, when I've been around, but to your point, Michael paid homage to a lot of the guys like a Dr. J, guys like Larry Bird and Magic who were there before him, but also he was one that paid it forward. And unfortunately, with what's happened with the recent passing of Kobe Bryant, Kobe was a little brother to Michael. And if you looked at how Kobe played his game on the court, and his tenacity, and even what he started doing off the court, a lot of what he did was what he learned and from Michael. And, you know, they were really, really close. And, you know, anyone who saw Kobe's memorial service and saw that genuine emotion from MJ, that was real, because he truly did lose someone that was a little brother to him. And at the end of the day, but he also always made homage to all those that were before him, the Magics, the Birds, the Bobby Joneses of the world, Moses Malone, George Gervin. Michael was a true historian of the game. And that's why I've been blessed to be around him and sometimes just sit and have real basketball conversations with one of the best. And to your point, when anybody asks me who's the best player that I saw play, it's MJ. Like you, without question. But I wasn't around when Wilt Chamberlain played, or Bill Russell. You know, I would see, or you know, all of the old greats, Clyde Frazier. But I'm a historian of the game. But to now see how, you know, I have an 8-year-old daughter who goes with me to all the Hornets games, and you know, she first met MJ watching Space Jam.
Nice.
And so at the end of the day, you know, her contemporaries are LeBron, you know, are the players, are Dwayne Wade. And, you know, the funny thing is her favorite player right now is Kobe White. And so at the end, I know she's truly my daughter because, you know, she's picking up the game because she's, you know, basically grown up going to Hornets games or Bobcats games when she was born.
Right.
But she grew up in the arena with me. And so literally it's nothing better than seeing your kid. And fortunately, you know, I didn't have a son, because if I had a son, I'm sure I'd be wanting him to play AAU. But having a daughter and seeing my daughter, that's me and her date night, is going with me to Hornets games. And my wife is totally content. Not that she doesn't like basketball, but she knows that's a good time to, and what's crazy, what we've been dealing with this coronavirus, literally, you know, you can sit there at NBA TV and watch old classic games. And so, but, you know, my daughter will go on YouTube and she knows how to go on and find some classic MJ games to look at. And so I'm truly, you know, I'm like, you're definitely my daughter, because at the end, basketball, you know, one, teaches you a lot about business, it teaches you a lot about life, it teaches you a lot about relationships. And that's the one thing, you know, even how we connected through my teammate, Miles Clark, when you reached out to me and was like, hey, I met you, the first email you sent me was, hey, your teammate Miles Clark told me to reach out to you. And to me, I knew you were good just once on the premise that you and Miles had connected. And at the end of the day, that's the one thing that sports can do. It continually connects dots for you. You know, Miles and I have not played basketball at Central. I graduated in 1991. You know, we have not, you know what I'm saying? But guess what? We're still connected. Yeah, it was a few years that we lost contact, as a lot of people do. But the beautiful thing is, we were talking prior to to us starting the interview, with social media, it's been able to reconnect some dots back, and you're able to, you know, see pictures from back when, when they won the championship in '89, or, you know, see different things that were highlights in our life and, you know, 30 years ago, but are still important. And through that, the relationships are still there. And that's the one thing, you know, I credit social media can be great sometimes, and social media cannot be great.
This is
but
true.
The one thing that it has been able to do, it has been able to connect people together, and one, keep people connected and make new relationships, just like me and yourself literally just connected a week and a half ago through Miles. And, you know, you reached out to me saying, hey, could you come in and get on my radio show? And I said, without question, because I met you through a good friend of mine. And so, you know, and like I said, right now, unfortunately, and in some ways, fortunately, we got time right now.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I appreciate you, you know, asking me to get on. I've had a pretty unique journey, you know, after college, to get into the music business, to follow my dream and passion. And part of what I do is, you know, I find other young students. I'm on the board of visitors at North Carolina Central University, where we went to school, and I go and speak there probably 2 or 3 times a year to different students, whether it's School of Business students, whether it's some athletes, or, you know, whether it's some music students. And so part of, you know, the upbringing I've gotten through both my parents is you got to pay it forward, because if you don't, then, to me, that's almost paying rent for your time on earth, is making sure you help others be better.
Yeah.
And that's what I truly believe.
And that is so true. I've inspired, from what folks have told me, I've inspired so many broadcasters with my journey. And I listened to Jim Durham call Bulls games for many years. And I just had a simple philosophy. If he could do it, I could do it. And I've had so many people ask me, how'd you get into the business? How'd you use your degree to get in the business? Well, this is what shocks a lot of people. I don't have a broadcasting degree. I just got 25 years of experience listening to different announcers, Jim Durham being one. Of course, today's announcers, Kevin Harlan, Marv Albert, quite a few others, Joe Tate from the Cleveland Cavaliers.
I used to listen to Jim Durham because I lived in North Carolina. We used to get WGN.
Yes.
So I used to listen to him and Big Red and
Johnny Red Kerr.
Johnny Red Kerr. And at the end of the day, Stuart Scott was a good friend of mine. And so, one, he didn't necessarily call games, but the way he made, broadcasting or telling highlights on SportsCenter cool. But, so Stuart was a good friend. James Brown from CBS, is a mentor of mine. But, Mike Hill that worked on ESPN and now works on Fox is a friend.
Yep.
So, like I said, fortunately, I've been blessed over the years to, meet a lot of these guys, and they've ended up becoming good friends. Grant Hill was one of my good friends who now is in broadcasting, but he and I were in Durham at the same time when he was at Duke.
Right.
And I'm a little bit older than him, but I actually worked in showing how music connects you. I was working at a record store or CD store in Durham, not too far from Duke, kind of in the middle between Duke and North Carolina Central.
Yeah.
That it was in 1989 when CDs were really popular. And Grant Hill, Bobby Hurley, and Thomas Hill, all three guys came into my CD store, and I helped wait on them. They came in asking about some music, and I waited on them. And from that one interaction, the three of us ended up becoming friends. And to this day, all three of us are still friends. And
That's
so
great.
From seeing what Grant was able to do on the court, but then to translate it into the business world where he's a minority owner of the Atlanta Hawks, but in addition, he's a broadcaster. And so it's just been a beautiful thing to just make these good relationships and sustain them. And a lot of blessings I've had in my life always end up tending to fall back to sports. And that's, I started playing basketball when I was 6 years old in the YMCA. Prior to it was even AAU basketball.
Right.
And to this day, a lot of my same friends that I played basketball with on my first team when I was 6 years old, we're still friends.
Beautiful. See, friendships like that are few and far between, and friendships like that you want to keep because you grew up with those guys. They know you as well as you know them.
And and we stay connected. And the beautiful thing is through social media and through group texts, and we're able to stay connected. And we've saw our kids grow up, and unfortunately when one of our parents unfortunately passes away, or on or another relative, we're always being able to be there for each other. And that's at the end of the day what life's about. And what we're dealing with right now with this coronavirus is something none of us have ever seen.
Yeah.
And so all I do is I have a wife and an 8-year-old daughter, and I'm trying to keep my family safe. And my mom, who's 88 years old, in an independent living community about 10 minutes from me. We haven't been able to see her for a week and a half because they've had them on quarantine.
Yeah.
But at the end, we moved my parents down here from Greensboro to Charlotte, just so we could be closer to them. And unfortunately, April of 2018, my father passed away, but he was 88 years old, and they been married 64 years. So at the end of the day, he lived a good life. But, we wanted to get my mom down here so we could help sustain her quality of life. And, she loved basketball, used to go to all of our games, and now she does not miss a Hornets game. So at the end of the day, we're able to give her something to look forward to. And that's why even, I talked to her prior to me calling in to this interview, and she was doing just what I'm doing, sitting at home watching NBA TV, looking at classic NBA games. Because really, it's nothing else to really do.
Right.
And so, but that's where, but my mom was a first grade school teacher for 30 years in Greensboro. and my dad worked in the Postal Service, so they were both, hardworking and taught us as a family, how to care about each other and how to always give back. And me and my brother have both been fortunate through our careers to be in a position to help others. My brother does a basketball camp called Achievements Unlimited that this will be the 36th year of the camp.
Beautiful.
He started it in 1985 when I was in 10th grade. And the reason he started the camp was because on his first basketball team, 5 of his 12 teammates had either passed away or were in prison or something before he reached 25. Man. And from that, he wanted to make a difference and start a camp. And we did a camp. We did the camp 25 years in Greensboro, and we've now gone into our 12th year here in Charlotte. It's called Achievements Unlimited, and we've seen over 10,000 kids over the course of those years come through his camp. And he's had a lot of good achievements, being the president of Hornets and a bunch of other stuff. But his greatest achievement was this camp that he literally started in 1985 to give back to young kids. And at the end of the day, that's truly what it's all about, is giving back to others.
That is truly, truly it, giving back to others. And I've had a pleasure having this man on, Charles Whitfield, joining me here, 25 years in the sports and business in the music industry. I'm celebrating this August my 25th year in broadcasting. I really feel it was destined.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. I really feel it was destined for us to connect. This is Charles Whitfield.
Absolutely.
Tell everybody where they can find you, my friend.
You can find me on social media on Instagram at Charles W10, on Twitter, Charles2323, and on Facebook at Charles Whitfield. So once again, Instagram at Charles W10, Facebook Charles Whitfield, and on Twitter at Charles2323.
And of course, anybody who knows basketball knows who originated the number 23. Thanks a lot, my friend. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. And anytime you need me, just reach out and I'll be glad to jump on again.
I really appreciate it. Got some more for you folks after the break.
This is Snowman in the Morning. Where true sports talk lives.
He did what? I did not need to be told that.
All right, I got a question. With sports being, here's our question of the day. I forgot to introduce it the right way. Oops, and I'm getting yelled at right now by my producer, and she has every right to yell at me. But here's the question of the day, and it goes a little something like this. With all of sports basically being halted, what are you binge watching? Either on cable or Netflix or Hulu or Vudu, which my wife got me turned on to, by the way. What are you binge watching right now? After football season, last year, we binge that show. She says, have you ever seen Downton's Abbey? What the heck is Downton's Abbey? Now with sports being halted, you know what's got me hooked on now? Baking championships. And y'all know me, I love that, which I have to calm down off the get out, okay? But these people are creative, man. I need to try that. You try that, I'm going to be in a coma. And she goes, you really want me to try this? Then shut up. Yes, ma'am. Basically the extent of the conversation. And, of course, we sit and laugh at each other the whole time. But she got me hooked on these she got me hooked on baking championships and cooking shows and house flip shows. That, which I would take my eyes off that show. I don't care if there is like two important grades in front of me that I'm working on. All I have to hear her say is, honey, the holiday baking championships are on. Okay, cool. We're turning on like right after the we during football season, we didn't even watch the Sunday night game. So while sports is halted, we're watching that. Getting all kinds of ideas and recipes and all that stuff. You would think with me, with the folks who know me, it would be a crime show. It would be, no, it's baking championships. And I love them all. I love them all. Especially when it comes on during the right time of the year, like Halloween. I think Halloween is how we got started in watching it together. I think it was Halloween 2 years ago. And I'll tell you what, I wish I was a judge on those shows, but I'd my taste tests at a minimum in my kitchen, at least until I come bring you a part of a mixer to lick or a spoon or something like that. Okay. But all kidding aside, question of the day is, with sports delayed, what are you binge watching? Tweet the show at SNW Digital Media or 9 to noon. Tweet the show at SITM 9 to noon or SNW Digital Media. Let us know what you're binge watching. More after this.
This is Snowman in the Morning.
Holy on snow!
Where true sports talk lives.
I like him. He's silly.
Hour 2. So I kind of heard something that, you know, Arsenio Hall had a segment that said things that make you go, Well, to borrow from that, I heard something that made me go, what? I feel like Joe Beningo. What? What I heard was, when the NBA does return, they plan on starting with the playoffs. What the hell is wrong with you? You're going to go right to the playoffs when a very dangerous situation, let's not make light of it, essentially killed a big part of the season. You're going to miss the playoff push. You're going to miss the teams that are fighting even harder than ever to stay in the playoff hunt. All kinds of stuff. You can't do anything about that, but you can be smart about it and say, why don't we give these players about 10 games. That's all. Let's give them about 10 games to get their legs under them, to get used to their teammates again, to get used to the atmosphere again, the arenas, because everything's closed. Everything has been postponed. Workouts, everything, practice facilities closed. Everything in the NBA shut down until this coronavirus pandemic passes or ends. Hopefully the latter and not the former. If you are in your home right now and you're listening to this show, A, thank you, and B, continue to take care of yourself. But let's just give them 10 games, okay? And something else that I heard on First Take, God, don't ask me why I actually watched that show recently. You know, being home, not being able to go to work and all. Don't ask me why First Take was in my ears and in my eyes. That show makes me hurt. But a very valid point was brought up during First Take. And it's a point that has basically brought the sports world to a halt. Money. A nugget of information that I was given. The magic number is 70. And no, I'm not talking about wins in a season. I'm talking about games being played. According to a few sources and according to what the folks said on First Take and with my producer Shane Lake, who was researching this for me, 70 games is the magic number for all the teams to get the local broadcast money, the local television money. Well, some of these teams haven't played 70 games yet. So if you bring them back and give them 10 games and give them the chance to get everything under them, to get all of their faculties together, then not only do you get that money, but you know, you have a good lead into the playoffs. Because this is the cynical part of me. The TV stations are hoping the season is canceled so they don't have to pay out that money. If it's a chance for them to keep the money, yeah, they're going to try to keep it. But at the same time, you got a lot of players itching to get back on the floor. But you want to do it safely. Let's just be real. You want to do it safely. You want to make sure the players are in a safe spot, a comfortable spot, and a good spot where they can get back on the floor and resume their playing careers. But 70 games is the target for all of the teams to get the local television money. You know how much you know what that means to all of the small markets like Milwaukee, like Oklahoma City. God forgive me for saying that. It means a lot. It means an infusion to the NBA. It means one hell of an infusion of cash to the NBA. So not only am I hoping that basketball comes back so I can see the Lakers fail to win the championship. Oh, did I say that aloud? I'm sorry. I'm kidding as I say that. But, you know, have everything in a good spot also. Have everything in a good spot and give them the 10 games to get themselves together. The 10 games are going to be very important, to say the least. Again, physically, it allows them to get their legs under them. It allows them to get used to the floor again, because this is a long layoff. This is an absolute long layoff. Okay? So whenever they do get it together, let's get them in the same, if we can't get them in the same speed or close to it that they were before everything shut down, then let's get them to a good spot where they can pick everything back up and try to make it better. Let's just do that. But I say 10 games is going to be very important for the players to get themselves back together. We are rocking and rolling on the show, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to follow us on all of our social media. The ID you need is SNW Digital Media for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and Pinterest. Now, let me bring Rick Curdy back onto the program. I'm trying to make him a weekly guest while we work on getting sports back going again. He joins me now on the other side of the hotline. Rick, how are you?
Hey, Snowman, how are you?
I'm good, man. It's good here in Carolina. I'll tell you that. Minus not having sports, it's good here in Carolina, man.
Oh, there's nothing finer than to be in Carolina.
Absolutely. Let's start by talking a little XFL. You know something?
Sure.
I have to admit something. Before the coronavirus pandemic hit, I was hooked. I was hooked on the XFL, man.
It's a great league. I've been following it. I mean, first day when Mr. McMahon did his press conference, because I remember the old one, and I thought, oh, that was so gimmicky, and it was stupid, and it was like wrestling, and the whole nicknames in the back, and I'm like, oh Lord. And then when I heard it was coming back, and I was like, oh, come on, dude, seriously. But then when I heard his press conference, I said, "Oh wait, this is like totally different."
It is.
The only thing that's the same. It's the name. That's the only thing that's the same as the name. I said even the logo looks different, the colors, and then little by little, I was like, "Man, I got hooked on it." And I mean, I'm not kidding you. I didn't watch any NFL. I waited 2 years for this thing to come out because I loved everything I heard about it. The quicker games, fewer stoppages. No politics involved, just play football. And I thought that is exactly what I want. And man, I saw the cities being announced. I love the names and I love it. And, it sucks that it ended, like everything else because of this virus, but they're going to be back in February 2021. So he has it funded for the next 3 years. So we'll see what happens, and there's rumors that they might expand to other teams, so we'll see what happens.
You know something? If I have to pick an underdog team, it would be St. Louis because, man, their fans really got behind that team.
St. Louis is a great sports town. Twice they've been screwed by the NFL, first with the Cardinals.
First with the Cardinals.
When they moved to Arizona, and then, of course, with the Rams, and they just were left hanging. Usually when people leave, it's because they don't have any fan support. They had the fan support. They just had greedy owners that wanted their own stadiums.
Yeah.
And I felt bad for the city of St. Louis because, I mean, they love the Cardinals. I know the St. Louis Blues won the Stanley Cup. So it's a great sports town. And, I mean, I remember when the Hornets left.
Yeah.
And that sucked. I remember living in Los Angeles when the Raiders moved to Oakland, and Oakland's 10 hours away from where I grew up, so it was like them moving to another state.
Yeah.
So it sucks. It sucks, especially when the fan support's there. It's just the owners are so greedy and want a new stadium. And then look what happened to the Raiders. They didn't get their stadium, and now they're in Las Vegas. So, I mean, it's crazy what happens. But St. Louis, I mean, not really surprised by the fan support there because they're so hungry for professional football there.
And it was awesome seeing how the fans got behind them. Like you said, the fan support was there. People want to say, oh, the fan support wasn't there for the Cardinals. Wrong answer. Yes, it was. It's like you said, the owners were so greedy for their own stadium. I mean, why couldn't you strike a deal where you could turn Busch Stadium into grass? And run it that way because the Cardinals kept that stadium for another 19 years before they moved to the new Busch Stadium in 2006. I mean, it was so much that could have been done to keep the Cardinals in St. Louis. And the best thing that this XFL has is a football mind running it in Oliver Luck.
Yeah, I mean, he was the greatest hire in all of sports. When I heard, when Vince McMahon hired Oliver Luck, and that brought so much credibility, and I think a lot of people were like, whoa, he got Oliver Luck. And I'm like, as commissioner, I'm like, that brings instant credibility, hiring Bob Stoops as head coach for the Dallas team, June Jones, Pep Hamilton, Mark Trestman, and it's like, wow, this is like legit. I mean, they got some good coaches, and he saw players coming, and he saw stars like P.J. Walker and Jordan Te'amau, and that were like, wow, how in the world are they not in the NFL? These guys are sensational.
Oh, yeah.
And now a lot of these XFL players like PJ, who's coming to the Panthers, I'm excited. Cam Phillips is outstanding wide receiver for the Roughnecks. I think he's rumored to either go to Cleveland. They're not sure yet. But a lot of them are being signed by the NFL right now. So there is a lot of talent in this XFL league.
It really was, and it was fun to watch. Like you said, it was the shorter games. Some of the cities, Houston, St. Louis, that have, I beg your pardon, fan bases already established. And Vince McMahon and Oliver Luck went to those towns, put teams together. Washington, D.C., Seattle, Washington, Tampa, Florida. They were all they were all there. And now with P.J. Walker being one of the first to sign with the NFL, oddly enough, signing with the Carolina Panthers, now you got some credibility that may being the operative word, return to the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. It all depends about this virus that is just stubborn and won't go away. And every time you think it's going to get better, then something else happens. So, we're all in the waiting process. We have a stay-at-home order right now in North Carolina that our governor signed.
Yeah.
And it's just sad that people are not taking it seriously. And people need to take it seriously because this is something that, not having any sports, it's crazy. The last time I remember this was 94 when baseball canceled the World Series. I think the hockey went on strike. I think basketball started late because of Players Association disagreement. So this is the closest thing I've ever had to not having any sports. So it really sucks.
It does. And 1994, boy, what a year that was, especially when it came to the lack of sports. And we nearly saw it again in 2011 with the NBA holding out till basically Christmas Day. It's tough. And I had one of my previous guests on the show said that sports was like our Band-Aid, especially in this country. Now we don't have it, but you get a chance to talk to people. And I want to remind everybody, please take this coronavirus pandemic seriously. Please take care of yourselves. Stay home. If you're ordered to stay home by your government, just comply and stay home unless you absolutely have to depart the house. My wife and I do because we work at a place that's essential. And we get up early, go take care of business, and then we come back. And then I'm rolling this show for you guys. But, something my wife said to me about, being essential. When everything came to a halt sports-wise, she looked me dead in the eye and said, you're essential because you got to bring something to the fans that they can talk about, whether it's old school or new school. And she's right. That's why this show keeps rolling.
I know it's something really serious. And, some of these corporations are not taking this seriously. You got a lot of these warehouse places where they're saying, well, we're essential, but it's like you got like 200-300 people working like elbow to elbow, and I'm like, that's not safe.
Right.
And so some of these companies, unfortunately, are just thinking of the almighty dollar and not really taking care of their workers. So like I say, people need to take this seriously. They need to stop going to the parks and throwing picnics, and they need to stop having pool parties and, 'cause this is serious. This thing does not care who you are.
Right.
Prince Charles got it. Kevin Durant, Sean Payton, Tom Hanks and his wife. This thing don't care. It don't discriminate. It
James
just goes
Dolan
after
got
anybody
it.
It wants.
How about that? James Dolan got it.
James Dolan. Doris Burke just tested positive for it. So this is scary, man. It's really scary, and I just tell people to be safe, be careful, and no place is worth your life.
It really isn't. It really isn't. Rick Curdy joining me here on this program, talking coronavirus, talking how to be safe, and talking XFL. And believe me, when the XFL comes back, this is my expert on the sport. I'll have a couple of them for each league and each sport that we cover here on the show. Thanks a lot, my man. I really appreciate the time.
This is Snowman in the Morning.
I did not need to be told that.
Where true sports talk lives.
Excellent.
Can't wait.
I never began an interview with such a declarative statement that I'm going to make right now. Don't ever tell me again that the Houston Rockets will compete for an NBA championship under this current regime. Sharif Ahmed now joins me on the other side of the hotline, and we're going to explain why. How are you, my friend?
Good. How are you?
Why do people insist on the Rockets being title contenders when they?
Well, let me tell you something. Oh, go ahead.
When they don't even have a full squad together, and I'm not talking about by personnel. I'm talking about by position.
Correct. Well, the thing about here in Houston are the fans are so fickle. They just, with the addition of with the addition of Russell Westbrook, he's anti-analytical. He's now carrying a price tag, millions and millions of dollars, and when this small ball was happening, it was just absolutely ridiculous. They were a 4 seed before the trade.
Yeah.
They were a 4 seed before the trade. Now they're about 2.5 games above the 7 seed. So right now they're sitting at a 6 seed with a 7 seed 2.5 games behind them. So there's a possibility if this season played out, they could have been a 7 seed while they were a title favorite. If we all remember that.
But I'm sorry to interrupt you, but where they got the small ball from. You know where they got the small ball from? The team that kept kicking their tail in the playoffs.
Oh, yes. Golden State Warriors. But here's the thing.
Go ahead.
But the thing is about the Golden State Warriors is that they had a rim protector.
Mm-hmm. Several.
Houston does not.
Several of them. Anybody remember Andrew Bogut? Anybody remember Andre Iguodala? Anybody remember JaVale McGee? Zaza Pachulia? So they had beef underneath. Hell, Draymond Green. He's a rim protector. People don't recognize it, but he is.
He is. You're absolutely correct.
And they expect, God help me for saying this, and I apologize because I know you're a Rocket fan. They expect Eric Gordon to be that rim protector. Why?
Well, I just want to just say I'm not a Rockets fan.
Okay.
I just live. I live in the greater Houston area, and that's all I hear is Rocket this, Astros this, Texans this. That's all I hear. So here's some numbers I want to throw at you really quick.
Please
the salary cap currently is at $109 million. Okay, and right now Russell Westbrook carries a $38 million price tag.
Yep.
James Harden carries a $37 million price tag. Eric Gordon carries a $14 million price tag. Covington carries a $12 million price tag. And Tucker is at about roughly $8 million. So if the salary cap's at 109, that right there, sir, constitutes almost that amount.
Yep.
Secondly, if you add up all the salaries from all the players that are currently on the roster, they're at $132 million over the cap. Therefore, they have to pay the luxury tax.
Yep.
Unless they do something drastic with their roster. Now, with the luxury tax, if they decide to keep this roster, they have to pay about 17-18% of the salary cap towards the luxury tax. Most of the time, teams will pay that if they're in title contention. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
And the thing is that the Rockets are nowhere near title contention. They're nowhere near as good as the teams in the West. And it's going to be very difficult for them for the following year, because I think you've discussed this in the past about their regime.
Yep.
You have a lame duck coach. You have an analytical general manager. who basically his roster is not an analytical roster.
Nowhere near.
And lastly, the owner is pounding on the desk, saying that he wants to win and he wants to win now. So, one last thing before we can continue with this. You want to know where the salaries for Westbrook and Harden will go for the next 3 seasons? Let me throw these numbers at you.
Please do.
2020. Next year, 2020, Russell Westbrook's salary is going to be at $41 million per year for that year. James Harden is right behind him at $40 million. In 2021, both of those players that will already be pushing 34, 35 years old will both be commanding a $43 million price tag in 2021. And then in 2022, with the team option or player option, both of those guys are going to be making $46 million a pop. So for the next 2 seasons, the Rockets are strapped for between $80 to $83 million for 2 players. What does that tell you?
They're not going to win a doggone thing. They got the wrong players in that regime. Okay?
Yes.
I've been trying to tell people this on this program, that the Rockets cannot compete, I beg your pardon, playing small ball because they have the wrong personnel. They got the wrong personnel.
Yes, and you know as well as I do that when it's NBA playoffs, the refs are going to let them bang a little bit.
Oh yeah,
especially if there's a 7-game series. There's going to be a lot of banging.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be a lot of dribble drives where guys are going to be sliding over for help. There's going to be that small bump. You know how it is.
Oh yeah.
They get that small bump coming in the lane. They're not going to call it like they would in the regular season.
Nope.
And the Rockets are not equipped for that.
They're not built for that kind of play. And
no.
They're not built mentally for the playoffs. And now, I know I've said such a blasphemous statement, but I don't care. Let's look at this factually, okay? And I'm going to use the team. I'm going to use the team that everyone in Houston, in your area, keeps saying they have a chance to beat. I'm going to use the Golden State Warriors, who won 3 titles in a 5-year span, playing small ball, but having the right personnel. In 2015, in the Western Conference Finals, the Warriors kicked their tails 4-1. And if you think about it, it shouldn't have been 4-1. It should have been 4-0, because the Warriors almost completed a miraculous comeback in Game 4 after Steph went out with a concussion. 1 year later.
I remember that.
Yeah, 1 year later, Steph is lost for the series against Houston. Didn't come back until mid-second round against the Portland Trail Blazers. And they still wiped out the Rockets in 5 games. 2018, the best chance the Rockets had to beat the Warriors, and I'm using the Warriors as a barometer here, folks. Stick with me. They had their best chance to beat the Warriors. Home court advantage, which means 7th game would be played in Texas. And you had the champions on the ropes. Had them down 3-2, going to Game 6 in Oakland. If the Rockets had any kind of machismo whatsoever, after holding an 11-point lead in enemy territory, which was once upon a time 17, they'd have wiped them out in Oakland and put the stigma to rest. But Klay Thompson got hot. They couldn't stop him. Stephen Curry got hot. They couldn't stop him. Kevin Durant, you already know the story. And by the way, JaVale McGee was a great rim protector who bullied Clint Capella for 2 games, 6 and 7.
Yes, but the one thing I can say about Capella was a baby when he was in that. I think he was maybe 19 or 20 years old.
Yeah.
And yeah, that shouldn't be an excuse. But yeah, you're right. They didn't have that. But the problem is this. Teams today I call this the LeBron factor. And let me tell you why.
Everywhere LeBron has gone since
I love you for this because you're right in my head. You're right in my head. I love
because
this.
they're trying. The thing is that when LeBron left Cleveland the first time, he went to Miami.
Yep.
He put the team together called the Heatles. Remember that term, the Heatles?
Oh God.
And everyone is trying to mimic that motto.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is though is this: you got to find players that fits their roles.
Yeah.
Do you know who's who's Houston's number 5 right now? Tyson Chandler.
Yep, Tyson Chandler.
No disrespect to Tyson Chandler. He had a great career, but you and I can probably beat him in a full court foot race, man. There's no way that they can construct teams like that anymore because you got to bring a bunch of veteran players at a minimum rate, and you tell them this is your role. But you have two of the players that touch the ball the most in the entire league. Who's going to want to play with that? Who's going to want to play with that?
And we know where the third one is. We know where the third one is. He's in Los Angeles. And I don't mean Kawhi Leonard because Kawhi actually shares the ball. You know who I'm talking about.
The Lakers, of course. And another thing I want to throw in here, too, is that the Rockets really don't have any assets to trade.
Nope.
PJ Tucker just re-signed. He's making about between $7 to $8 million a year for the next 3 years. And then Eric Gordon just re-signed, I think last year or the year before, for $14 million a pop, and his contract is guaranteed for the next 2-3 seasons. So you're stuck. Who's going to want to take an Eric Gordon contract that he can't even play 45, 50 games healthy? You got PJ Tucker, who's 6'5" and his ass play center. Who's going to want that?
And you laugh at that situation because he's playing way out of position. He thinks he can bang with the best of them. And I never did get to 2019 because the Rockets erased a 2-0 deficit against Golden State, had them on the ropes again. They were minus Kevin Durant. They were minus DeMarcus Cousins. And I'll point to this play, which illustrates perfectly the mentality of the Houston Rockets. Late in the game, in Game 5 at Oracle Arena, there was a scramble for the ball deep in the corner. Klay Thompson went after it for a split second. But when Kevon Looney gained control, Klay Thompson did exactly what he was supposed to do. He dove to the bucket, and Looney found him, and all you saw were 3 Rockets in the corner wondering where the ball was while Klay Thompson had a wide-open layup.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. I remember that. I do remember that. And another thing, too, man, and we touched on this before when we talked last time, D'Antoni can't win the big one.
Nope.
That Phoenix Suns, I think it was 2007 when the Spurs won that 2007 title. The Suns were the best team in the league.
Yeah, they were.
And the only time that they had a chance to beat them was when Robert Horry hip-checked Steve Nash.
Mm-hmm.
And the Phoenix benches cleared. And Amari Stoudemire couldn't play. I forgot what other key starters did not play against the Spurs that series. And the only player that the Spurs lost was Robert Horry.
That's it.
And that was his best chance and only chance to win a title. And I tell these Rocket fans here, and I love them, the fact that they're very loyal to their team.
Yeah.
And that's great for sports. But the reality of it is you have a de facto coach who can't win in the playoffs, and his system is not conducive to the NBA playoffs. NBA regular season, yes. NBA playoffs, it does not work. And they're still thinking that they have a chance to win. There's no way. That means if the Rockets are the 6th seed right now, they play. I looked at the standings earlier today, but I'm thinking the Clippers are a 3 seed.
Yeah.
So it'll be Clippers Rockets, and you're going to think that the Rockets can beat the Clippers.
No.
That series right there would go would go 5 just due to the fact for TV, for the TV portion of it.
And that's all.
It'll go, and that's it. And then what happens then? It's mind-boggling.
It's a wipeout. Once again, it's a wipeout. And you said it best. A de facto coach, and of course we're talking about Mike D'Antoni, a de facto coach who should not have been hired in the first place. Kevin McHale should have been given a chance in 2016 to right the ship in Houston. They panicked. They fired McHale. They brought in D'Antoni, and it's been a sinking ship.
It has been. You're absolutely right. And I just want to just say here in Houston, Houston sports, I don't want to go a little off base of topic, but we're talking about Houston. But the professional franchises here in Houston are all in shambles. You got the Rockets that are in shambles.
Yep.
You got the Houston Astros with their scandal, and now you have the Houston Texans, who right now are going to be a division contending team to a sub 500 team within 2 trades.
Yep.
So and then the Roughnecks were 5-0, but the XFL league couldn't finish.
Yeah.
But there's I don't know what it is. Is it mismanagement? Is it? I don't know.
I absolutely think it's mismanagement. Save the Roughnecks. It's got to be mismanagement. We don't have to explain the Texans. All we got to say is Bill O'Brien. That's all we have to say.
Yeah.
All we have to say is Bill O'Brien. As far as the Rockets go, Daryl Morey. Do I need to say anything else?
No. I don't want to ask you a question. I want to ask you a old school basketball question, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
I posted this on my page and my social media. I try to make this debate, and it seems very one-sided, but I don't think it's one-sided. Do you think, in your basketball opinion, if Dream Team 2 can beat Dream Team 1?
You're teasing me, right?
I'm being dead serious.
You're being dead serious. I saw your reasoning of why you think Dream Team 2 can take down Dream Team 1. I saw your one-word reason. And to a point, I agree. Here's the problem. A new school center like Shaq at the time would have been beaten to death by an old school center we like to call Patrick Ewing. The athleticism with Dream Team 2 is there. Don't get me wrong. The athleticism of Dream Team 2 is there. But there was a basketball mind with the original Dream Team by the name of Chuck Daly, who would have devised a game plan to take down Dream Team 2. Now, would it have been a close game? You bet.
Let me just throw the lineup for you for Dream Team 2. Tim Hardaway, Joe Dumars, Reggie Miller, Hakeem Olajuwon, Shaq, Sean Kemp, Larry Johnson, Isaiah Thomas, and I'm trying to see the picture because the pictures are just so vague. Steve Smith, Dan Marley, Derek Coleman.
Mm-hmm.
No, it wasn't. I'm sorry. Not Hakeem Olajuwon. Dominique Wilkins, Mark Price.
Yeah. Well, I love some Mark Price because Mark Price was Steph Curry before Steph Curry was born. But
all right, let's have some fun here.
Go for it.
Let's do matchups.
Let's do it.
Matchups. We'll start in the 5. David Robinson started as the 5.
Yeah.
Okay, then we put Shaq. We put Shaq in there. Shaq versus Robinson. Who wins that matchup?
That's even. That is too even to call. You would give a slight advantage. You'd give a slight advantage to Robinson because Robinson had something Shaq was developing, and that was a little baseline jump shot. But it's too even. It's way too even.
Yes, and you're absolutely correct. I forgot to add one more post player to the team that completes the team. It's Alonzo Mourning. Okay. You call that even. All right, we'll do the 4. Who played the 4 in Dream Team 1? Charles Barkley.
Mm-hmm.
Charles Barkley. You want to say Charles Barkley, Sean Kemp.
Oh, man. Athleticism would go the way of Sean Kemp. Rebounding and defense would go the way of Barkley. So you can cancel that out.
So that's even.
Yeah.
Okay. Small forward. I think I'm not gonna even debate this, but I'm still gonna throw the matchup on there. I'll still throw up the matchup on there. Michael Jordan, Steve Smith. We'll give that to Michael Jordan. We're not even gonna sit here and argue that and debate that. Now, the interesting one is the number 2. Reggie Miller was their number 2. Who would go up against Reggie Miller?
Scotty, no, that's wrong. That's wrong. I was going one. You know what? I am gonna go that way because Scotty played on 2 dream teams. Scottie Pippen. There's your answer. Long, lean, athletic, can hit a jump shot also. So Pippen could shut down Reggie Miller. Advantage Scottie Pippen.
Okay, we have 3 guards here. We can choose which one will start at the 1. Either Isaiah, Tim Hardaway, or Joe Dumars against John Stockton. Let's just say Joe Dumars gets the starting nod. Joe Dumars against John Stockton.
See, that's when you pull a fast one if you're Chuck Daly, because Daly knows Dumars. All right, you got to base this on knowledge. Daly knows Dumars, so you know what Daly would do? He would take a 6'6" bald guy named Michael Jordan and said, "Stick him. Let's leave Stockton a little room to roam." But then you mentioned 3 starting point guards. It wasn't a mistake with Dream Team 2 to have 3 starting point guards at all. No, not saying that at all. But you have to look at it, since we're talking old school, you got to look at it the way Dream Team 1 was constructed versus the way Dream Team 2 was constructed, because Dream Team 2 was only there for 94, the World Basketball Championships that were played in Canada.
Yes.
You know who I would, if you'll allow me a wild card, since we're talking about a point guard, you got you had Joe Dumars, Isaiah Thomas, and Mark Price. I'll slip a wild card in this conversation. And my wild card would be Kevin Johnson.
Really?
Yeah. Remember,
I like
KJ,
your way of thinking.
Remember, KJ didn't get a chance to play until after 96, and he was on the downside of his career. But KJ's career blossomed in Phoenix.
It did.
I would allow Kevin Johnson, if you want to go speed for speed, because Mark Price is one of the fastest guards in the game. Isaiah Thomas was one of the fastest guards in the game. That's why I loved watching him. But if you'll allow me a wild card, I throw Kevin Johnson at him.
Yeah, but here's the one thing. But this is my argument, though. This is one of the. I'm the only one, I think, in my post that actually think the 94 can beat him, and here's why.
Okay.
Larry Bird retired.
True.
After the Olympics, did he not?
True.
I don't even think I think he was averaging maybe between 10 to 11 minutes a game, if that.
Yeah, because his debilitating back injury really got the best of him.
Right. Then you had Magic Johnson, who was out of basketball, out of the league for the year after he, had the announcement. He played the All-Star game, and that was pretty much the only game action he had.
True.
See what I'm saying? You had Chris Mullin.
Mm-hmm.
You had Clyde Drexler. You had Clyde Drexler. If you want to throw that on there. But the thing about the 94 team was you had Alonzo Mourning, you had Shaq, you had Larry Johnson, and then
you
the
basically
international
had
game,
the 90s era on that 94 Dream Team. The original Dream Team, and I'll allow you this, and I see where you're going. The original Dream Team, if you really want to think about it, was the closing of an era that we had the pleasure of watching, save Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and David Robinson. The original Dream Team, I believe, began the closing of an era.
I agree. I agree with you on that one. But it would have been one hell of a game to see, though, because
yeah,
Shaq has been going all, Shaq has mentioned it a few times that he feels that group could have beaten the first group.
Yeah.
And I do agree with him. And another tidbit I want to throw in there.
Yeah.
You had 3 on the 94 team. You had 3 players on that team were in the top 5 in either three point percentage, 3-point attempts, and 3-point makes.
And it was around that time where the game began to be extended out to the 3-point line. It was around that time. It wasn't as rangy. That's the best word I can come up with as it is now. But by 94, 95, it was being extended out to the 3-point line.
And remember, and again, we talked old school this a while back. I think the 3-point line was introduced in 79, 80. I don't remember.
Yes, sir.
But it was taboo to shoot a 3-pointer.
Yeah.
It was taboo. Coaches would take players out if they shot 2 or 3.5. They'd be like, "What are you doing?" But let me just throw these three.
Except Casey Jones or Bill Fitch with the Celtics, except Pat Riley with the Lakers, who saw how to use the weapon.
Yeah. Let me just throw 3 players at you from the 94 team that were in those top categories. You had Mark Price, Reggie Miller, Dan Marley, Thunder Dan. And you also have to remember the 3-point line is almost 23, 24 feet, to whereas the international line is 20 feet.
20 feet, yes.
So now you're bringing in, you're shortening the gap by 3 feet.
Yeah, and it's a chance to get up some more 3-point shots.
Yes. So that was my argument there.
Yeah.
They can spread the floor out, which now forces Shaq. I mean, can you imagine?
Yeah.
For let's just say for 2-3 minute spurts, you put Shaq and Zoe in the blocks.
And they've had their battles. They've had their battles, folks. You know what the final score would be? I'm we're coming up against a break here, but you know what the final score would have been? And I wouldn't care which dream team won. It would be something like 225 to 200 or 225. It would be, both teams would have 200 points. Both teams would have 200 points.
I would love to see the spread of that game. Can you imagine the spread and the over and under on that game? That would be one hell of a game.
You know what the over and under would be? I'll tell you right now, and I've done some handicapping back in the past. You know what the over and under would be? 520.
Probably, and they'd probably flirt with it too.
They would indeed flirt with it. You know it, I know it. With those two dream teams, the 2 original dream teams, folks, 92 and 94. Tell me that wouldn't be a 500-point game. Tell me that wouldn't be 500 points before overtime.
Minimum.
And you still allow Bird his 11 minutes. You allow Magic Johnson to get his feet under him. Are you kidding me? That will be a 500-point game easy.
It would be a great game to watch. But that's an argument. That's an argument that you can go back and forth with because everyone was so overwhelmed by the 92 team. But you can even say 94 and 96 could have gotten them. But that game will never happen.
But those are dream teams. That's why they call it dream teams. It would be fun either way.
Yeah.
It would be fun. It would be, and you know what? Let's stop with the original Dream Team 2, 94, and then Dream Team 3 of 96, okay? And the reason I'm stopping there is very simple. No LeBron involved. I'm sorry. Bring Kobe into the equation. I'll allow that. Tim Duncan, I'll allow that. The Splash Brothers, I'll allow them. I will not allow LeBron on the Dream Team. I just wouldn't. I'm sorry. People are going to hate me for that statement. I don't care.
Not me.
Because you get it. Because you completely understand. You completely understand why I throw a statement out there, and I'm getting yelled at right now, but I want to bring this in because my beautiful engineer's yelling at me. Because if I say a statement, and you've seen it happen, if I say anything blasphemous against LeBron, do you know how much pushback I get every time I make a statement like that?
Oh my goodness! I mean, I'm just thinking about making a T-shirt with Hulk Hogan colors say "LeBron Maniacs." I mean, it's just so bad. I'm
actually told we're okay. Let's keep going. Let's go. And let's listen. I've always said on this program, and you heard me say it, LeBron is a fantastic athlete. There is a difference between being an athlete and being a basketball player. Here's the difference. Stephen Curry is a basketball player. Kawhi Leonard is a basketball player. Klay Thompson is a basketball player. LeBron James, Russell Westbrook, James Harden ain't basketball players.
No. And I agree with you on that. And you also have to also say that Steph Curry revolutionized the game.
Absolutely.
Because if you think of Steph Curry eliminated the 5 spot. He eliminated post play.
He did.
Yes. I'm not a Steph fan, but I respect Steph's game. But when you break it down to basketball, he single-handedly eliminated a position. How many true 5s do we see in the league right now?
We don't. And I ain't counting Dwight Howard in that equation because I haven't liked Dwight Howard anyway.
Yeah,
since he left Orlando. Nikola Jokic is bringing that position back. He's a true back to the basket kind of center.
But the thing is that there's 2 elements to his game that makes him unique. He can hit a mid-range jumper off a pick and pop.
Yep.
Or if there's a fast break, he can literally be the last guy trailing a play.
Mm-hmm.
Jamal Murray can dribble penetrate and then kick out to the top of the key, and Jokic will just spot up and will hit a 3 in your grill.
And he's very accurate. He's very accurate. Listen, I hate to upset these bronzexuals, as my friend Cole Johnson would say, or these bronzomaniacs, and we're definitely going to have to close here. I hate to upset these bronzomaniacs, but he's an incomplete player. If he learned how to dribble without traveling 3/4 of the time, he'd be dangerous. If he actually developed a post game like, Michael Jordan did, like, Larry Bird did, like, you know this name, Sean Elliott.
Pride of Arizona.
Sharif Ahmed joining me to talk some NBA. Glad to have you aboard, my friend.
Thank you for having me, and I love talking hoops with you, man.
Somebody that gets it while y'all get this. Back in a flash.
All right.
is Snowman in the Morning.
I did not need to be told that.
Where true sports talk lives.
Excellent.
Can't wait. All right, I got a question. With sports being, here's our question of the day. I forgot to introduce it the right way. Oops, and I'm getting yelled at right now by my producer, and she has every right to yell at me. But here's the question of the day, and it goes a little something like this. With all of sports basically being halted, what are you binge watching now? Either on cable or Netflix or Hulu or Vudu, which my wife got me turned on to, by the way. What are you binge watching right now? After football season last year, we binge that show. She says, have you ever seen Downton's Abbey? What the heck is Downton's Abbey? Now with sports being halted, you know what's got me hooked on now? Baking championships. And y'all know me, I love that, which I have to calm down off the get out, okay? But these people are creative, man. I need to try that. You try that, I'm going to be in a coma. And she goes, you really want me to try this? Then shut up. Yes, ma'am. Basically the extent of the conversation. And, of course, we sit and laugh at each other the whole time. But she got me hooked on these she got me hooked on baking championships and cooking shows and house flip shows. That, which I would take my eyes off that show. I don't care if there is like two important grades in front of me that I'm working on. All I have to hear her say is, honey, the holiday baking championships are on. Okay, cool. We're turning on like right after the during football season, we didn't even watch the Sunday night game. So while sports is halted, we're watching that. Getting all kinds of ideas and recipes and all that stuff. You would think with me, with the folks who know me, it would be a crime show. It would be, no, it's baking championships. And I love them all. I love them all. Especially when it comes on during the right time of the year, like Halloween. I think Halloween is how we got started in watching it together. I think it was Halloween 2 years ago. And I'll tell you what, I wish I was a judge on those shows, but I'd my taste tests at a minimum in my kitchen, at least until I come bring you a part of a mixer to lick or a spoon or something like that. Okay. But all kidding aside, question of the day is, with sports delayed, what are you binge watching? Tweet the show at SNW Digital Media or 9 to noon. Tweet the show at SITM 9 to noon or SNW Digital Media. Let us know what you're binge watching. More after this.
This is Snowman in the Morning.
Holy on smoke!
Where true sports talk lives.
I like him. He's silly.
Hour 3. You know, folks, we have been living in, to say the least, weird times. No sports going on, at least not live. The fellow I have on the other side of the hotline right now does the same thing I do. He has a microphone in front of him, but nothing to broadcast, at least not yet. Dave Barnett now joins me. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, Brian. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. How are you coping during this? How are you coping during this pandemic, my friend?
Well, the only thing I could compare it to is 9/11.
Yeah,
and the difference is after the initial shock of 9/11, I would say within 2 weeks, the sports world had adjusted and had figured out a way to move on. And obviously that is not the important thing in the big picture, but that's, for what we're dealing with now, that's the only comparison I think that I can make. And you knew that wasn't going to be indefinite like this, as horrible as it was.
Mm-hmm.
And really, it only cost the sports world not even 2 weeks, I think, because I was doing the only sporting event in the country that didn't shut down after 9/11. For ESPN, it was the U.S. Senior Women's Amateur Golf Championship in Pennsylvania. And they decided to carry on because all the golfers were there and they'd already played their practice rounds. And I think it started on the 13th. And they played on, and then a lot of our crew were supposed to go from Pennsylvania to Baton Rouge to do Auburn at LSU. And it still amazes me that the ESPN logistics people, once that was canceled, and the SEC was the last league to cancel things that weekend, but they found a way to get everybody home. But then the following week, schedules had picked back up. And games were made up in the first weekend in December. This looks like it could stretch all the way through summer. And I know college football is optimistically hoping to get a season in, which may mean there's no gap between the end of the regular season and the conference championship games and the bowl season. It may be nonstop football.
Yeah.
And that's even being optimistic. I mean, there are people that say it probably isn't going to come off at all. So the aspect of figuring this out on the fly, and it literally changes by the day, and some days it changes by the hour. That's the thing that is the most unsettling, because there is no dress rehearsal. There's no real comparison to make. And, in a few months, hopefully, we'll have seen how the various sports and the leagues have figured out how to go on. The good news there would be that apparently they've gotten the pandemic under control.
Yeah. Do you think there will be a football season, college or pro? What are your thoughts?
It's impossible to predict. I think it would be more surprising to me at this point if football carried off with no delay. I think that would be almost miraculous at this point. That would mean training camps in August, and first weekend of college football is the end of August.
Mm-hmm.
Every day that goes by, that seems less and less likely, and I see more and more schools and leagues planning on that not being the case. But if they could play all but September, maybe teams lose most of their non-conference games, but most of the conference schedules could still take place. It'd be really hard to rank teams, based on not playing the same number of games, not playing some of the tough non-conference opponents that they had planned to. I mean, it would definitely be a huge asterisk by everything that happened in that season, but at least there would be a season.
Yeah.
So I think even if they pick it up in November, I think if it's at all possible, even if teams could only play 8 games, if that meant they go all the way through November, December, and straight into conference championships, bowls, whatnot. I mean, if that's even logistically possible with the stadiums they use, I think the powers that be will do whatever they can to salvage whatever there is to salvage.
Do you think that would hold true for the NBA and Major League Baseball?
I think they'll be as creative as they need to be. I mean, the NBA already talking about playing an entire postseason in one arena with no fans.
Yeah.
You know, that's about as creative, I think, as you could get. So I think baseball's dealt with strikes. If there's any sport that's probably best positioned to ad lib, it would be baseball, because they've played partial seasons before. Most recently, 1994. So
right.
If baseball picks up, even if baseball picks up in September, well, okay, then it's going to be a sprint to the finish. 1 month of baseball and see where we are, and then postseason starts.
Yeah, that would be true, and that's probably the scenario we're looking at. Dave Barnett joining me, voice of Fox Sports, one of the voices of Fox Sports and Westwood One, and voice of the North Texas Mean Green, talking coronavirus pandemic and how it affects sports right now. Whom do you think, which group, college athletes or pro athletes, do you think is the most affected at this moment?
Well, I think college athletes, and especially seniors. As you said, I broadcast from my alma mater, University of North Texas. And this was a dream season. They won the regular season Conference USA Championship, top seed going into the conference tournament, which was canceled the day they were supposed to play their first game, the quarterfinals. So if there'd been an NCAA tournament, they would have gotten the automatic bid. And later that same day, there was no NCAA tournament. So there were 3 seniors on that team. There are teams all over the country that, have seniors that didn't think they were playing their final game, and it turned out they already had. So that's tough to replace. The spring sport athletes will get another season. There will be baseball teams next year that have double rosters. Because they'll have the players that would be seniors next year and the ones that would be seniors this year. So there's an adjustment there, but the winter sports and in particular basketball, those are the kids that I really feel for.
Yeah, those are the kids I feel for also, not having a chance to replay their senior season. The NCAA did it right.
Matter of fact, and one in particular, here is the one kid the first kid I thought about.
Okay.
Is point guard for Gonzaga, Ryan Woolridge, who transferred as a graduate from North Texas. And the reason he transferred was he didn't want his career to go by without playing in the NCAA tournament. Well, as it turns out, he would have had a great chance to play in the NCAA tournament if he stayed put, but he knew he would make it at Gonzaga. And there he is on, arguably favorite to win the national championship.
Right.
And he moved halfway across the country for that to happen, and now he's deprived of the opportunity to play. So there are stories like that, but he's the one that I think is really got to be feeling it more than anybody that I know. Yeah.
The day that everything shut down, I was here in studio, all the alerts were coming in. Wife and I had gone to work. We come back and, she put the bug in my ear about, conference tournaments shutting down and the alerts that were flying on my phone and across the screen. And then all of a sudden it just seemed like at that moment, everything shut down. The NCAA tournament was the last thing to be canceled. I don't think there's any logistical way they could have postponed this and played it in the spring. Your thoughts on that?
Probably not. That would have been difficult because of the arena availability and lots of different factors. I think it would have been a nice gesture if the NCAA had at least gone ahead and done bids. So at least, that would have been a nice gift for the fans, fans of schools that had never gotten a bid or had been a long time could say, well, okay, we were going to be a 13 seed. And that's how they can, at least look back on this season. Obviously, it wouldn't have been the same, but it would have been a nice gesture.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, in the big picture, this isn't literally life or death, but in the arena you and I work with, they're human stories. And I'll trace it to the Rudy Gobert story, because the conference tournaments were going on.
Yep.
And Rudy Gobert did his thing at the press conference and grabbed all the microphones. And then it turns out he's positive. And then it turns out his teammate, Donovan Mitchell, was positive. And that's the moment that sports shut down.
Yeah.
I mean, it might have happened any day. It may have happened anyway, but that was the catalyst. That's how I will look back on this.
That's how I look back on it also. Dave Barnett, the man who's the voice of the Mean Green of the University of North Texas. You can also hear him at Westwood One and also with Fox Sports. I am happy to have you on, my friend. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it, and I hope you come back again soon.
Well, hopefully under better circumstances we can visit again.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
Anytime, Brian. Thank you.
Stick around. I got more for you after this.
This is Snowman in the Morning.
I did not need to be told that.
Where true sports talk lives.
Excellent.
Can't wait.
You want to know something crazy, folks? ever since I moved from Indiana to North Carolina with my family, I've met some great people. And last week I had Miles Clark on, who is a former Eagle, North Carolina Central. And now I have his teammate on. Say hello to Charles Whitfield. He joins me now on the other side of the hotline. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing terrific. It's great to meet you, and it's great to talk to you.
My pleasure. It's my total pleasure. And anybody that is a friend of my teammate, Miles Clark, is now a friend of mine, and my pleasure to join you on your radio show.
I really appreciate it. What was it like with you and Miles playing at North Carolina Central? And this is back in the 80s when you guys were in Division II before you guys made the jump to D1.
Exactly. No, it was a beautiful thing. Miles is a couple years older than myself, so he was like a big brother to me. And when I first came in as a freshman at North Carolina Central, I played basketball in Greensboro at Greensboro Page High School. And once I got to Central, you know, as you are in high school, when you're the man or one of the men on your team, when you get to college, you're back at the low man on the total pole again. And as a freshman, that's exactly where I was. And I had a couple guys like Miles, a couple other teammates. One of our teammates is a brother named Cleo Hill, Jr., who's now the head coach at Winston-Salem State. So he was another one of my big brothers, and another brother named Wayne Howell, who, you know, all three of those guys kind of almost adopted me as their little brother. And the experience was great. And to be able to be in practice and learn from those guys. And the beautiful thing is after college, you know, I graduated in college in 1991 and it's now 2020. But the beautiful thing is we're all still connected and we're still friends. You know, all of my teammates, we share a group text with about 20 of us. And every day, one of our teammates who now is a minister sends us out a scripture every day. And, you know, we're able to just communicate with each other. So whether, you know, unfortunately, we've had a couple teammates who passed away over the years. But when someone has a birthday or when something good happens in each other's lives, with the simple click of a text, you know, we're able to stay looped in. And Miles was always great on the court. He was a great basketball player. He was a great leader, but he was a great person. And the beautiful thing is, you know, with what we're going through now, with this, you know, coronavirus pandemic, you know, everyone has nothing but time. And through it, you're able to stay connected or reconnect with new friends such as yourself.
And it's been absolutely great to connect with you, to connect with Miles Clark and everyone I've had a chance to connect with. You were not only a basketball player, but you were also into music, which led to you getting into radio. And I read in your bio while folks were getting into Kool Moe Dee and those guys, you were into George Benson.
Exactly. I grew up listening to jazz with the older brother. I'm 50 years old. You know, if I can make it 2 more days, I'll be 51. Celebrate my birthday on March the 30th. But I have an older brother who's 10 years older than me, who, as most people know, if you have a brother or older sibling, you want to hang out with them. And that was my dream, was to just hang out and ride with him. And as I would ride around town with him, with us having a 10-year age gap, I was listening to a lot of jazz that he listened to, whether it was David Sanborn, whether it was George Benson, whether it was Miles Davis. And don't get me wrong, you also listen to a lot of early, you know, a lot of R&B. This was in the late 70s, early 80s. So whether it was SOS Band or Michael Jackson or Prince. So I really, you know, credit a lot of, you know, my music knowledge to my brother, because at the time I didn't know it, but I was actually, you know, riding around listening to music with him, and which would eventually turn into a job, not only working in radio, but prior to me working in radio, I actually helped start a record label called Hidden Beach Records that actually Jill Scott was the first artist that I worked with, that actually through my brother and a close family friend being Michael Jordan, he actually became the majority investor in Hidden Beach. So at the end of the day, through relationships was how I ended up getting my job in the music business, and I've been in it 25 plus years, and blessed to be in a business doing something I truly love every day. but through sports, a lot of relationships I met through sports, between sports and entertainment, as we all know. All entertainers want to be tied into sports, and all sports athletes want to be tied in with musicians.
True.
And so the beautiful thing is I've been blessed through a lot of close relationships to be blessed to have my foot in both. And it's nothing that I ever take for granted. And it's a blessing. And I try and touch as many young people as I can to help pass down some of the knowledge and wisdom I've received over the years through some of my mentors. And to me, it's all about paying it forward.
Yeah, it is. And I try to do the same with my radio show and my media company, Snowman Digital Media, that I just started at the top of this year. And you just mentioned,
congratulations on that.
Thank you. And you just mentioned the player who I watched the most, which is Michael Jordan. And before him, it was Julius Erving. And here is where I differ from a lot of folks that I talked to today in terms of basketball. When they ask me who my favorite player is, and I say Michael Jordan without blinking, at the same time, I'm not oblivious to the folks who paved the way for Michael Jordan, like a Julius Erving, like a Magic Johnson, like a Larry Bird. Hell, one of my favorite point guards played with Philadelphia, and that was Maurice Cheeks, fellow Chicagoan.
Nope, I grew up we're, without even knowing your age, we sound like we're in the same generation. And the one thing I can tell you, I met Michael when I was 15, and I'm 50, soon to be 51, and he's like another big brother to me. And as I tell people, we actually met him when he was in high school. My brother used to be an assistant coach at a small school in North Carolina called Campbell University.
Yeah.
And they used to have a pretty prestigious basketball camp. And my brother was working on his master's degree. He played at Campbell, but he was a grad assistant. And when Michael was in high school, Michael came and played with a lot of the ACC players who used to come down and play. And that's where we first met him. And he and my brother just got a click and got a bond and stayed connected. And as I tell people, how close he and Michael really are. One, they've been in business 25, 30 years. My brother is fortunately the president of the Charlotte Hornets. But when Michael's dad passed away, my brother and a few of Michael's close friends were pallbearers. Yeah. And at the end of the day, that's all you need to know what that relationship is about. So not only have they do business together where, my brother helps oversee all of the business side of the Charlotte Hornets, Michael's family. And so at the end of the day, when I've been around, but to your point, Michael paid homage to a lot of the guys like a Dr. J, guys like Larry Bird and Magic who were there before him, but also he was one that paid it forward. And unfortunately, with what's happened with the recent passing of Kobe Bryant, Kobe was a little brother to Michael. And if you looked at how Kobe played his game on the court and his tenacity and even what he started doing off the court, a lot of what he did was what he learned and from Michael. And, they were really, really close. And, anyone who saw Kobe's memorial service and saw that genuine emotion from MJ, that was real because he truly did lose someone that was a little brother to him. And at the end of the day, but he also always made homage to all those that were before him, the Magics, the Birds, the Bobby Joneses of the world, Moses Malone, George Gervin. Michael was a true historian of the game. And that's why I've been blessed to be around him and sometimes just sit and have real basketball conversations with one of the best. And to your point, when anybody asks me who's the best player that I saw play, it's MJ. Like you, without question. But I wasn't around when Wilt Chamberlain played or Bill Russell. I would see or all of the old greats, Clyde Frazier. But I'm a historian of the game. But to now see how I have an 8-year-old daughter who goes with me to all the Hornets games, and she first met MJ watching Space Jam.
Nice.
And so at the end of the day, her contemporaries are LeBron. Are the players, are Dwayne Wade. And, the funny thing is her favorite player right now is Kobe White. And so at the end, I know she's truly my daughter because, she's picking up the game because she's, basically grown up going to Hornets games or Bobcats games when she was born.
Right.
But she grew up in the arena with me. And so literally it's nothing better than seeing your kid and fortunately, you know, I didn't have a son, because if I had a son, I'm sure I'd be wanting him to play AAU. But having a daughter and seeing my daughter, that's me and her date night, is going with me to Hornets games. And my wife is totally content. Not that she doesn't like basketball, but she knows that's a good time to. And what's crazy, what we've been dealing with this coronavirus, literally, you know, you can sit there at NBA TV and watch old classic games. And so, but, you know, my daughter will go on YouTube and she knows how to go on and find some classic MJ games to look at. And so I'm truly, you know, I'm like, you're definitely my daughter, because at the end, basketball, you know, one, teaches you a lot about business, it teaches you a lot about life, it teaches you a lot about relationships. And that's the one thing, you know, even how we connected through my teammate, Miles Clark, when you reached out to me and was like, hey, I met you, the first email you sent me was, hey, your teammate, Miles Clark, told me to reach out to you. And to me, I knew you were good just once on the premise that you and Miles had connected. And at the end of the day, that's the one thing that sports can do. It continually connects dots for you. You know, Miles and I have not played basketball at Central. I graduated in 1991. You know, we have not, you know what I'm saying? But guess what? We're still connected. Yeah, it was a few years that we lost contact, as a lot of people do. But the beautiful thing is, we were talking prior to to us starting the interview, with social media, it's been able to reconnect some dots back, and you're able to, you know, see pictures from back when, when they won the championship in '89, or, you know, see different things that were highlights in our life and, you know, 30 years ago, but are still important. And through that, the relationships are still there. And that's the one thing, you know, I credit social media can be great sometimes, and social media cannot be great.
This is
but
true.
The one thing that it has been able to do, it has been able to connect people together, and one, keep people connected and make new relationships, just like me and yourself literally just connected a week and a half ago through Miles. And, you know, you reached out to me saying, hey, could you come in and get on my radio show? And I said, without question, because I met you through a good friend of mine. And so, you know, and like I said, right now, unfortunately, and in some ways, fortunately, we got time right now.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, I appreciate you, you know, asking me to get on. I've had a pretty unique journey, you know, after college, to get into the music business, to follow my dream and passion. And part of what I do is, you know, I find other young students. I'm on the board of visitors at North Carolina Central University, where we went to school, and I go and speak there probably 2 or 3 times a year to different students, whether it's school of business students, whether it's some athletes, or, you know, whether it's some music students. And so part of, you know, the upbringing I've gotten through both my parents is you got to pay it forward, because if you don't, then to me, that's almost paying rent for your time on earth, is making sure you help others be better.
Yeah.
And that's what I truly believe.
And that is so true. I've inspired, from what folks have told me, I've inspired so many broadcasters with my journey. And I listened to Jim Durham call Bulls games for many years. And I just had a simple philosophy. If he could do it, I could do it. And I've had so many people ask me, you know, how'd you get into the business? How'd you use your degree to get in the business? Well, this is what shocks a lot of people. I don't have a broadcasting degree. I just got 25 years of experience listening to different announcers, Jim Durham being one. Of course, today's announcers, Kevin Harlan, Marv Albert, quite a few others, Joe Tate from the Cleveland Cavaliers.
I used to listen to Jim Durham because I lived in North Carolina. We used to get WGN.
Yes.
So I used to listen to him and Big Red and
Johnny Red Kerr.
Johnny Red Kerr. And at the end of the day, Stuart Scott was a good friend of mine. And so, one, he didn't necessarily call games, but the way he made, you know, broadcasting or telling highlights on SportsCenter cool. But, you know, so Stuart was a good friend. James Brown from CBS, is a mentor of mine. But, you know, Mike Hill, that worked on ESPN and now works on Fox, is a friend.
Yep.
So, like I said, fortunately, you know, I've been blessed over the years to, you know, meet a lot of these guys, and they've ended up becoming good friends. Grant Hill was one of my good friends who now is in broadcasting, but he and I were in Durham at the same time when he was at Duke.
Right.
And I'm a little bit older than him, but I actually worked in showing how music connects you. I was working at a record store or CD store in Durham, not too far from Duke, kind of in the middle between Duke and North Carolina Central.
Yeah.
That it was in 1989 when CDs were really popular. And Grant Hill, Bobby Hurley, and Thomas Hill, all three guys came into my CD store, and I helped wait on them. They came in asking about some music, and I waited on them. And from that one interaction, the three of us ended up becoming friends. And to this day, all three of us are still friends. And
That's
so
great.
from seeing what Grant was able to do on the court, but then it translated into the business world where he's a minority owner of the Atlanta Hawks, but in addition, he's a broadcaster. And so it's just been a beautiful thing to just make these good relationships and sustain them. And a lot of blessings I've had in my life always end up tending to fall back to sports. And that's, I started playing basketball when I was 6 years old in the YMCA prior to it was even AAU basketball.
Right.
And to this day, a lot of my same friends that I played basketball with on my first team when I was 6 years old, we're still friends.
Beautiful. See, friendships like that are few and far between, and friendships like that you want to keep because you grew up with those guys. They know you as well as you know them.
And yep. And we stay connected. And the beautiful thing is through social media and through, group texts and, we're able to stay connected. And, we've, saw our kids grow up. And, unfortunately, when, one of our parents unfortunately passes away or, on or another relative, we're always being able to be there for each other. And that's at the end of the day what life's about. And, what we're dealing with right now with this coronavirus is something, none of us have ever seen.
Yeah.
And so all I do is I have a wife and an 8-year-old daughter, and I'm trying to keep my family safe. And my mom, who's 88 years old in an independent living community about 10 minutes from me, we haven't been able to see her for a week and a half because they've had them on quarantine.
Yeah.
But at the end, we moved my parents down here from Greensboro to Charlotte, just so we could be closer to them. And unfortunately, April of 2018, my father passed away, but he was 88 years old, and they been married 64 years. So at the end of the day, he lived a good life. But, we wanted to get my mom down here so we could help sustain her quality of life. And, she loved basketball, used to go to all of our games, and now she does not miss a Hornets game. So at the end of the day, we're able to give her something to look forward to. And that's why even, I talked to her prior to me calling in to this interview, and she was doing just what I'm doing, sitting at home watching NBA TV, looking at classic NBA games. Because really, it's nothing else to really do.
Right.
And so, but that's where, but my mom was a first grade school teacher for 30 years in Greensboro. And my dad worked in the Postal Service. So they were both, hardworking and taught us as a family, how to care about each other and how to always give back. And me and my brother have both been fortunate through our careers to be in a position to help others. My brother does a basketball camp called Achievements Unlimited that this will be the 36th year of the camp.
Beautiful.
He started it in 1985 when I was in 10th grade. And the reason he started the camp was because on his first basketball team, 5 of his 12 teammates had either passed away or were in prison or something before he reached 25. Man. And from that, he wanted to make a difference and start a camp. And we did a camp. We did the camp 25 years in Greensboro, and we've now going into our 12th year here in Charlotte. It's called Achievements Unlimited, and we've seen over 10,000 kids over the course of those years come through his camp. And he's had a lot of good achievements, being the president of Hornets and a bunch of other stuff. But his greatest achievement was this camp that he literally started in 1985 to give back to young kids. And at the end of the day, that's truly what it's all about, is giving back to others.
That is truly, truly it, giving back to others. And I've had a pleasure having this man on, Charles Whitfield, joining me here, 25 years in the sports and business and the music industry. I'm celebrating this August my 25th year in broadcasting. I really feel it was destined.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. I really feel it was destined for us to connect. This is Charles Whitfield.
Absolutely.
Tell everybody where they can find you, my friend.
You can find me on social media on Instagram at Charles W10 on Twitter, Charles2323, and on Facebook at Charles Whitfield. So once again, Instagram at Charles W10, Facebook Charles Whitfield, and on Twitter at Charles2323.
And of course, anybody who knows basketball knows who originated the number 23. Thanks a lot, my friend. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. And anytime you need me, just reach out, and I'll be glad to jump on again.
I really appreciate it. Got some more for you folks after the break.
This is Snowman in the Morning.
I did not need to be told that.
Where true sports talk lives.
Excellent.
Can't wait. Welcome back to the program, folks. Thank you for joining us. For all programs distributed by Snowman Digital Media, just follow us at SNW Digital Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and Pinterest. Let's go back to the NBA, and I'll welcome back Desmond Johnson into the conversation. We talked Carolina Panthers earlier. Now let's talk Charlotte Hornets. What do they have to do first and foremost to get back into, let's just be honest, a competitive range?
Wow. They need some experience. They need experience right now. I mean, I like the core of what they've kind of put together with Devontae Graham, P.J. Washington, Miles Bridges. I'm not sure about the future of Malik Monk. With all the coronavirus stuff that's going on and the canceling of the season, it kind of got lost in the shuffle that Malik Monk just got indefinitely suspended by the NBA for some sort of drug usage. And they never said what the drug was. Usually if it's marijuana or something, it comes out. But with this one, they were very vague about what it was that he was on. And, Coach Borrego for the Hornets, in his statement for it, basically just said they were there to give him any kind of help he needed. It was more about that than it was anything else. So I'm not really exactly sure what's going on with Malik Monk. So I can't really even include him in the core going forward. But P.J. Washington and Miles Bridges, Devontae Graham, I like those as a building block. They feel like they would be better if they had just that one LeBron, Durant, Kawhi, like superstar. Because the NBA is the only league where if you've got one superstar, you got a chance to win an NBA title. You don't need 2 or 3 or 4. That kind of got tipped the past couple of years. If you got 2, you got a great shot. And with Charlotte, it's more of a matter of the only way they're going to get that is through the draft. Like, no one's going to come there as a free agent superstar and turn Charlotte into whatever. But any star they've had that's even near that level, whether it's Larry Johnson or Kemba Walker, they've gotten them through the draft. or some sort of trade of some sort. But even then, that hasn't resulted in that type of level of player. The type of level of player where you're saying that guy's a top 20 NBA star, Larry Johnson at the time when he was with Charlotte, or Kemba Walker towards the end when he left. You could say Kemba was a top 20 guy. He was an NBA All-Star that year and was a starter, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, you could easily say that. Those all came in the draft. So Charlotte has to draft somebody that could take them to the next level. And I don't see that person in this year's draft. Maybe James Wiseman, but the center is so obsolete now in the NBA, I don't know if that would be the guy. I was high on Cole Anthony at the beginning of the year. I'm not so high on him to be in Charlotte now.
No, I'm not so high either. You think the Hornets miss a little bit of Kemba Walker right about now?
I think they would have been just fine if they hadn't signed Terry Rozier. If they hadn't signed him and just saved the money and just let Devontae Graham start, if the whole purpose was to let the young kids play, there was no reason to spend money for Terry Rozier when Devontae Graham is clearly a better fit for the offense that Borrego wants to run. Rozier will have some nights where, he'll go off for 25, but he's so up and down that I don't think it's helping at all. And with Devontae, they kind of have a diamond in the rough. He's a second-round pick. He was a Big 12 Player of the Year his senior year at Kansas. He's been in big pressure situations. He was shooting crazy from three-point range, like over 40%, if I'm not mistaken. He should be the starting point guard for the Hornets. If they're worried about name brand recognition and that kind of stuff, Terry Rozier ain't it. So they kind of wasted money on Rozier to come in and do what? I mean, he's doing the same stuff that Graham could have did, but worse.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I was wondering why they made the move for Terry Rozier, why they signed Terry Rozier anyway. You can't judge everything Rozier has done on one playoff series. I mean, Rozier, if you look at that, or one or two playoff series, if you think about it, because Rozier was forced into duty with an injury to Kyrie Irving, and I'll touch on him in just a moment. But you can't judge anything on a player that was forced into duty that was, to me, in a better system. Rozier is not for that Charlotte system.
I agree. It's almost like they were like, I think they panicked. I think the Hornets panicked. Like when they realized they weren't going to be able to sign Kemba Walker back and that he was going to leave for real, I honestly feel like they did not expect Kemba to leave. I think that they expected Kemba to stay and to take the money and to give him a little slack on the contract on top of it. And that way they could build around him or whatnot. But I didn't think Kemba was going to stay. He didn't have a reason to. He's in a much better situation now in Boston. And when that happened, it left them with this bag of money that they couldn't give to Kemba. So they're like, well, we got to give it to somebody. And Terry Rozier was just kind of standing there with his hands out. So, I mean, honestly, I'd be more than happy if they could trade Terry Rozier to open up some minutes for Devontae Graham. And if they end up with, a situation where I don't know what's going to happen with this season, but if everything freezes where it is and they have the draft in June or July, I think the Hornets were going to pick 7th or 8th. Cole Anthony's going to be sitting right around there probably if he comes out, which he probably will. Do you draft Cole Anthony?
That's a good question.
That's a question I have to answer. Because, I mean, at that point, at 7 or 8, if Cole Anthony's still sitting there, he's probably the best player available. He's still in need, playing point or shooting guard. He's coming from Carolina, so there's a little bit of a rooting interest there. You know that with Jordan and everything else, their history with picking Tar Heels. Does he go to Carolina? Does he go to Charlotte? That's the decision they would have to make, because then they're going to have a glut right there with Rozier and Graham and Anthony and not enough minutes to go around.
What is another pressing need for the Charlotte Hornets?
I personally think I think James Wiseman would be a good pick for them if he's still there, because he's a pure center. And there's not a lot of those left in the league, but if you look at the teams that actually have a pure center, they're usually pretty good. Whether it's Denver, Zion is pretty much a center. He's just an undersized center.
Yeah.
And they were starting to play pretty well in New Orleans. If you look around, like Utah, Rudy Gobert, Defensive Player of the Year a couple times now, got the teams that have an actual center. Like I consider Bam Adebayo a center with the Heat, and they were playing great. If you it hasn't gone away. I think Golden State's warped this mentality of everybody needs to be shooting threes or Houston's out here shooting 63s in a game and playing small ball. But the basketball is always going to be about who's more talented, who's taller. And if you've got some big guys that can do a lot of things, that opens up the door for everything else. You put someone like James Wiseman on the front line with P.J. Washington at power forward, Miles Bridges at small forward. You put, let's say Monk does come back. Monk's at shooting guard, and Devontae Graham's at point guard. That's not a bad lineup. That's not a bad lineup at all in the Eastern Conference. In fact, that's probably a 4 or 5 seed in a couple of years as they get older.
True.
So, I mean, that would be the mentality I would have. I'd be trying to find a big man.
Let's stay in the East. And one of the teams, and you and I have spoken about this off the air, one of the teams that gets so much ballyhoo and gets so much props, but to me hasn't proven anything is the Philadelphia 76ers. And they got two big problems right now. One of them is Joel Embiid. The other is Ben Simmons.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to trade one or the other. Problem is, which one of them do you trade? Because Ben Simmons had some injury issues. He was out as everything ran to a halt, and they didn't have a date for him coming back. And I don't think Joel Embiid's ever played an 82-game season. I think he's always been nicked up with injuries. So, I mean, who do you choose? Do you choose Embiid or do you choose Simmons? I don't think that they can keep both. They could keep both, but I don't think they will.
You got 4 players on that team that have plus $100 million contracts. How do you shave that?
Somebody's got to go. And out of those guys, I mean, it's got to be one of those big two. You got to pick one of those guys to be the face of the franchise and try to get something for the other. And again, I'm a big man fan, so I lean more towards Embiid because I would say when healthy, Embiid is the top 10 player in the league, maybe top 5 when healthy. I can't say that about Ben Simmons. So Ben Simmons is like top 20, top 25 to me, but he can't shoot. So I mean,
and that's why I don't give him even top. That's why I don't give him even top 25. Ben Simmons cannot shoot.
He can't shoot. He's big. He's a almost 7-foot guard playing, and he can dunk. He can drive into the lane, do all that. But until he can develop at least some sort of mid-range jump shot to be respected, I would go with Embiid. To be honest, I would keep Embiid and try to trade Simmons for either parts that complement Embiid or a bunch of draft picks so you can get them on your own.
You know, here's an idea that someone brought to me, and I want your thoughts on this. What if Ben Simmons is kind of scaling himself or positioning himself, I beg your pardon, to be traded to the Lakers? A, how would the Lakers pull that off? And B, how would Ben Simmons fit on that team?
Well, for me, if you see, why would the Lakers want him? Like, I mean, unless they honestly, like,
that's beautiful. I love
why
it.
Would the Lakers? Why would they want him? It doesn't fix any of the problems the Lakers have. I mean, the Lakers' biggest problem is that they don't have guards that can shoot.
Right.
Yeah, they don't have a shooting point guard. They've got guys that can plug in like Danny Green and KCP that can shoot the ball,
but
they're
they don't
not
have pure shooters.
Shooting point guard.
They really don't.
Like right now, the point guard's LeBron. Yeah, LeBron's the point guard. So I mean, bringing Ben in, I think it was a success having LeBron at the point guard position, to be honest. I think it was a perfect move for him. He was leading the league in assists. I think he was having an MVP season. But Ben Simmons there doesn't fit. I think he'd fit more someplace like, honestly, a place like New Orleans. But they don't need him either. I think Lonzo Ball is going to be great there with Zion as a partner for years to come.
And I'm glad Lonzo's doing better. I'm glad Lonzo's doing better. He got away from Los Angeles. He got away from his father, and now it just seems like it's all beginning to click for him.
Yeah. And we didn't even talk about draft-wise. Another guy to look out for, his brother LaMelo.
Yes.
He's grown. He's like 6'8". He can shoot better than Lonzo. People are saying he might be the number 1 overall pick. Which I don't understand because that would be going to Golden State, but and they definitely don't need a point guard. So
no, they don't.
I don't know, but yeah, I'm happy for Lonzo too. I think he'll never be a great superstar like Jason Kidd. That's who everyone's comparing him to, but I think he's got a chance to be a solid 10, 12-year pro in the league, and he'll have some games where he's got double-digit assists and that kind of thing. But he's never going to be like a flashy superstar.
How about James Wiseman to Golden State? That would solve a lot of problems for them. And
I thought that's what they would do. That's literally what the pick I expect them to make is James Wiseman.
Yeah.
Because then they can put him at center. You get Steph back, you get Clay back, you get Draymond back. Is that would just and you have Andrew Wiggins playing small forward, so he's a more athletic version of Harrison Barnes, who was on the team when they won 73 games or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then you upgrade the center position, like Golden State would be reset to go off for another 5 years.
Yeah,
if Wiseman lives up to the hype.
Well, I'm going to talk about this next segment, but you just brought up a very good point. And like I said, this leads into the segment I have after the break. The Warriors are positioning themselves, and this is what a lot of people are not looking at. The Warriors are positioning themselves for the second part of their dynasty. Not second half, but second part of their dynasty. Because as long as they're the Splash Brothers, the Warriors are still breathing.
Yep, and the thing people don't realize, too, you can still shoot like that in your mid-30s. Like some of these other things, the teams have, they're based on athleticism, and when that athleticism starts to go away because of age, they start to decline. Shooters are shooters. You can shoot like that at 40 years old. Like as long, and Clay and Steph can get off their shots without dribbling the ball. Now, Steph obviously is a better dribbler than anybody in the league, really. I think he's got the best handles than anybody other than maybe Kyrie.
Absolutely.
But Clay, we've watched Clay. What was the one game he scored like 60-some points and took
29
like 4 dribbles?
In 29 minutes.
Or whatever.
Yep. He took 4 dribbles that entire game, and he dropped 60 points in 3 quarters.
I love, not only do I love the nickname, I love the Splash Brothers. They are my favorite duo right behind Jordan and Pippen.
Thank
to
you.
me in NBA history from what I've been watching. They're just so fun to watch, and I miss it. I miss them being out there. I miss the NBA. This is usually the time of the year when I'm watching NBA heavy.
Yep.
March Madness is ending. You know what I mean? Like I'm getting into that basketball mode and getting ready, and I was all ready for, I'm a Laker fan. Grew up on Showtime. And I was ready for almost a coronation for LeBron again, because I watched everybody talk smack about him and that he was washed. And he came out on a scorched earth tour this year, and now I don't know if we're going to see the end of it. Like I don't know if we're going to see the third part.
I don't know if we're going to either. But again, I'll talk about this next segment. But people don't understand the Warriors are positioning themselves for the second part of their dynasty, and B, you mentioned something that I love talking about. The Splash Brothers remind me of every duo that played in the golden era. Jordan and Pippen, Magic and Kareem, Maurice Cheeks and Julius Erving, or Julius Erving and anybody on that Philadelphia 76er team, Bird, McHale, and Parrish. Those teams right there.
Yeah, I can see that. Honestly, I felt bad for Clay when Kevin Durant showed up in Golden State, even though he was part of the contingent trying to convince him to come over.
Mm-hmm.
But I look at it like, Clay's not considered in many people's eyes a top 20 player when really he is. In terms of what he can do and how he shoots. Like, he's one of the better shooters ever, like in NBA history. And he doesn't get a lot of credit for it because Kevin Durant was there for 2 years and overshadowed him, really. Steph even took a back seat when Durant was there. But people forget how good Steph Curry is. He's the only unanimous selection for
most valuable
the
player
MVP in history. That's, Wilt, Jordan, Shaq. Like, none of them did that. Like, and Steph Curry did this and won back-to-back. It's just like people sleep on how good they are. And I don't think either one. I think Steph might have just turned 30 recently, but he's like at the halfway point of his career.
Yep.
Like, they've got another 7-8 year stretch here where they can keep this thing going and really do something.
I'm reminded of the words of Paul Pierce. This is not the Golden State Warriors. This is the Golden Empire. They're taking a year off because of all the injury, and they're getting ready for another run. Trust you me. Desmond Johnson joining me while he's on the road and while we're getting it together. Man, thanks for coming on again here on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Anytime. And I got to get you on. We're going to try to do this NFL greatest team ever bracket on the rundown, and I'm inviting media personalities to take part in trimming the field down from 6-4-1. So I'll be in touch with you about that soon here too.
All right, man. Thanks for coming on. Well, that's going to just about do it for this edition of Snowman in the Morning. Want to thank you all for tuning in Don't forget to log on to Snowman Digital Media, where you can hear a replay of this show, and also snowmaninthemorning.com, where you can hear a replay of this show. Check out the podcast on both sites, as the podcast will be available immediately after I close up shop here, which I'm about to do now. Until Monday, have a great day. God bless. Remember to make your next move your best move. And always remember, if your dreams don't scare you, then they are not big enough. Dream big, do bigger. I am, and I hope you all are too. Out of here for the weekend. Snowman out.